Chapter 40. Zhuo Hongqin's reputation in the hospital was not just good, it was very good. You. Zhuo Hongqin glanced at her and hid the disappointment that flashed across his eyes. Hurry up and eat. I was lucky enough to talk to Dr. Ali a few times during my trip to the United States. We exchanged some ideas. I've sorted out the information. Come to my office later and I'll give it to you. That's very nice of you. Thank you so much. You're too polite. How about you treat me to dinner? Zhuo Hongqin said half-jokingly. Su Qingsang nodded heavily. Of course. Even if you don't give it to me, I'll still treat you to dinner. It'll be a welcome dinner for you. Don't you think so? Aren't you taking advantage of me again? It's 2 meals and you're treating me to 1 meal? Then I'll treat you twice. 3 times. There's still 1 wedding. Zhuo Hongqin laughed after he said that. Su Qingsang didn't take it seriously. She and Zhuo Hongqin were the same type of people in some ways. They liked their profession and didn't care about family or friends when they were busy. They were both workaholics. They had a good relationship since she started her internship in the hospital. Like Shi Mengwan, Zhuo Hongqin was Su Qingsang's good friend. She went to Zhuo Hongqin's office to get the information and helped him with a minor surgery in the afternoon. Su Qingsang picked up her bag and was about to leave after work. She completely forgot that Hu Jinyao said he would pick her up in the morning. Are you done? Zhuo Hongqin stood in front of Su Qingsang's desk and looked at her focused face on the computer. He couldn't help but laugh. I'm almost done, Su Qingsang said without raising her head. The information Zhuo Hongqin brought back was really useful to her. She was at the height of her excitement. You. And a workaholic. Zhuo Hongqin said that, but his eyes were gentle. He pulled over a chair and sat down. He stared at Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang didn't notice. She looked at one spot and suddenly raised her head to look at Zhuo Hongqin. Here, did Dr. Ali get the data from her own practice? Let me see. Zhuo Hongqin got up and walked behind her to look at the spot she was pointing at. I discussed all of this with Dr. Ali at that time. She had practiced this data before. In fact, these latest papers had already been published. But we can't see it for now. Dr. Ali is really amazing. Su Qingsang's face was full of admiration as she spoke. This kind of data, this kind of analysis, is it really amazing? Zhuo Hongqin didn't leave after answering the question. Instead, he stood behind her and pointed out 1 or 2 points from time to tell her his thoughts. They were all doctors. Even if they were from different departments, they were still connected. Su Qingsang nodded repeatedly, not even noticing that Zhuo Hongqin was getting closer and closer to her. Qingsang? She was startled by the sudden voice. She turned around and found that Hu Jinyao had arrived without her noticing. You haven't gotten off work yet? Hu Jinyao glanced at Zhuo Hongqin. He wasn't wearing a white coat. This person was, I'm almost done. Su Qingsang suddenly remembered that he said he would pick her up. She saved the documents and was about to get up when she realized that Hu Jinyao was looking behind her. Zhuo Hongqin? Su Qingsang rubbed her forehead. She had been so busy that she had forgotten about this. Chapter 41. He was looking at Zhuo Hongqin and Zhuo Hongqin was also looking at him. It was not difficult to guess the other person's identity from his tone. Zhuo Hongqin looked calm and collected, but he took a small step towards Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang also realized that Zhuo Hongqin was standing very close to her. She had a good relationship with Zhuo Hongqin. He was her senior and the son of the hospital director. Su Qingsang didn't think too much about it. Now that he was so close to her and she met Hu Jinyao's gaze, she felt a strange sense of guilt. What the hell? Let me introduce. This is Zhuo Hongqin, my senior. Senior, this is Hu Jinyao, my husband. She really couldn't say the word husband. Su Qingsang's words made Hu Jinyao slightly raise his eyebrows. He was really not satisfied with such an official introduction, and he didn't miss Zhuo Hongqin's subtle movement just now. This man probably had an ulterior motive towards Su Qingsang. He had an answer in his heart, so he politely took 2 steps forward and reached out to hold Zhuo Hongqin's hand. Senior Zhuo, right? I'll call you senior too. I am Hu Jinyao, Qingsang's husband. Zhuo Hongqin reached out to shake his hand. The 2 of them held each other's hands in the air. Then they exerted force and quickly separated. When Hu Jinyao withdrew his hand, he didn't forget to pull Su Qingsang into his arms. Su Qingsang's body stiffened and felt uncomfortable for a moment. She really needed time to get used to Hu Jinyao holding her hand, waist and shoulders from time to time. Hu Jinyao felt her body tense and stiffen, so he hugged her even tighter. Since you're done, let's get off work. Hu Jinyao. Su Qingsang touched her nose a little awkwardly. Senior just came back today and I promised to treat him to dinner. Zhuo Hongqian stood there and started to size up the man in front of him. He looked very tall, at least 1.9 meters. He also had a strong aura. The hand that shook his hand just now was firm and strong. Su Qingsang buried herself in the hospital every day, either performing surgery or doing research. How did she know this man? He was curious, but when he heard Su Qingsang's words, he smiled. Yes. Qingsang promised to treat me to dinner today. Since he's Qingsang's senior brother, I should be the one to invite him. As Hu Jinyao spoke, he tightened his arms around Su Qingsang's body. With a smile on his face, he said enthusiastically, "You weren't around when Qingsang and I got married, so I have to treat you to this meal. What do you like to eat?" "I just came back and I miss Chinese food." "As long as it's Chinese food." Zhuo Hongqian was not picky. Hu Jinyao nodded and turned to look at Su Qingsang. "In that case, let's go eat Sichuan cuisine." "Can I?" "All right." "I don't think we should eat Sichuan cuisine." The two different voices caught Hu Jinyao's attention. He looked at Zhuo Hongqian and asked, "You don't like it?" "It's not that I don't like it. Qingsang's stomach isn't very good. She shouldn't eat too spicy food, right?" When he spoke, his expression was very calm, as if he was concerned about his junior sister. However, Hu Jinyao understood the hidden meaning in his words. As a senior brother, he knew that Su Qingsang couldn't eat spicy food. But as her husband, he made such a suggestion. Hu Jinyao narrowed his eyes, and his gaze flickered slightly. It seemed that this senior brother was not a simple person. Chapter 42. Hu Jinyao's expression instantly changed to one of concern. "Your stomach is not well? Why didn't you tell me?" "Of course not. Don't talk nonsense." Su Qingsang felt uneasy. "I was busy with my thesis, so I didn't have a fixed time for my meals. I've been very careful this year. My stomach is fine now." "Really?" Hu Jinyao frowned and turned Su Qingsang's body. "If you're really not feeling well, you have to tell me. Otherwise I'll be worried." The concern in his eyes stunned Su Qingsang. For a moment she almost thought that Hu Jinyao liked her. She quickly shook her head. How was that possible? This guy had only been with her for a few days. How could he like her? From the corner of her eye, she saw that Zhuo Hongqian had been looking at her. She seemed to suddenly understand. Hu Jinyao was acting. He probably wanted to protect her reputation in front of her senior brother and the hospital. She knew it from the way he came to deliver her wedding candy. Thinking of this, she felt much more at ease. She smiled at Hu Jinyao. "Okay, don't worry. If I'm not feeling well, I'll definitely tell you." "That's good." Hu Jinyao held her hand. "Since your stomach is fine, let's eat Sichuan cuisine. How about that?" "Okay." She actually liked Sichuan cuisine, Hunan cuisine, and other cuisines. Although the taste was a little strong, it was very satisfying. Zhuo Hongqian looked at Hu Jinyao's actions and smiled slightly. The smile in the depths of his eyes lessened a little. "Mr. Hu is so good to Qingsang." "Of course." Hu Jinyao looked calm. "Qingsang is my wife. Who else should I be good to if not her?" Even though Su Qingsang knew that he was acting, she couldn't help but blush because of his words. Hu Jinyao probably worked in a film company, right? How could he be so good at acting? He said it as if it was true. Hu Jinyao and Su Qingsang got into the car together. Zhuo Hongqian had driven his own car here, so he drove behind them. "Your senior brother looks quite young." Hu Jinyao looked at the shadow of the car behind them. He sounded very casual. "Yes, he's very young. He's not even 30. "Oh. Yes. He's not even 30, but he already has a master's degree. He specialized in cardiovascular surgery. His medical skills were superb. He has published papers in national academic journals." "So powerful?" Hu Jinyao looked at the red light in front of him and narrowed his eyes slightly. "Yes." Su Qingsang nodded. "I want to be a great doctor like him." Hu Jinyao could tell from Su Qingsang's words that there was no emotion other than admiration. He turned to look at her. Her clear eyes were sincere and sincere. She really hoped that she could become a good doctor. "You definitely can." "Thank you." His blind trust in her gave Su Qingsang another strange feeling. Looking at Hu Jinyao's handsome side profile, she thought that he was indeed very handsome. Not only was he handsome, but he was also good with words and knew how to take care of others' emotions. Whether he was sincere or not, at least she didn't dislike what Hu Jinyao did today. He was even a little touched. She shook her head and found that her attention had been on Hu Jinyao, which made her very uncomfortable. Fortunately, they soon arrived at the restaurant. Zhuo Hongqian's car arrived almost at the same time as Su Qingsang. Chapter 43. Su Qingsang didn't notice Hu Jinyao's action at all. When she saw Zhuo Hongchen, she was reminded of the time when she first started her internship in the hospital. He didn't expect time to pass so quickly. In the blink of an eye, she had graduated from her master's and senior brother was about to start his PhD. She sighed in her heart at the passage of time. She didn't notice that Hu Jinyao's lips had curled up because she didn't dodge. Of course, Zhuo Hongchen saw the smugness on Hu Jinyao's face and felt that it hurt his eyes. Su Qingsang's reaction made him even more uncomfortable. The man was tall and handsome, while the woman was elegant and gentle. She snuggled up to Hu Jinyao, making him feel uncomfortable. He didn't want to see this glaring scene anymore, so he took the lead and entered the restaurant. They entered the restaurant, and Su Qingsang suggested to Hu Jinyao that they should go to a private room. However, Zhuo Hongchen refused. He said that he liked to watch crowds. Especially when he was surrounded by yellow-skinned and black-haired Chinese, he felt like he had truly returned to his own country. The group sat down in the hall outside, and a waiter came over to serve them tea and menus. Hu Jinyao held the menu and moved closer to Su Qingsang. "Qingsang, how about this? As long as you like it." "Why would I like it?" "Of course it has to be something you like." As Hu Jinyao spoke, he inadvertently put his hand on her shoulder. Once again he was pleased to find that her body was no longer tense. Su Qingsang's body wasn't tense, but she felt very uncomfortable. Her senior brother was still sitting opposite her. What was Hu Jinyao doing? She looked up and saw Zhuo Hongchen's gaze on her face. His eyes seemed to be teasing her. Her face turned even redder. "Senior brother, you should order." Zhuo Hongchen also had a menu in his hand. After Su Qingsang spoke, he spread his hands helplessly. "I haven't been back in China for a long time. I want to try all the signature dishes on this menu." "Then let's order them all." Hu Jinyao was very forthright. He didn't care that there were only 3 of them. He ordered 7 or 8 dishes and 2 soups in one go. Finally, he passed the menu to the waiter. His behavior attracted Su Qingsang's attention. Was this guy out of a job? Why did she give gifts yesterday and spend money so recklessly today? If he squandered money like this, he would probably starve before he could even find a job. Zhuo Hongchen looked at Hu Jinyao. He was not as good as Xiang Jingqing. His father was the head of a hospital. As a doctor, especially a doctor who had come into contact with many wealthy people, some people and some things could be seen. Zhuo Hongchen picked up the cup and took a sip of tea. He glanced at Hu Jinyao and asked, "Where does Mr. Hu work?" "I just resigned," Hu Jinyao said calmly. He didn't feel embarrassed about being unemployed at all. There was a flash of surprise in Zhuo Hongchen's eyes. He turned to look at Su Qingsang and found that she did not seem to mind at all. "Qingsang, you won't despise me, right?" Hu Jinyao reached out to hold Su Qingsang's arm as he spoke. Su Qingsang felt very uncomfortable, especially since Zhuo Hongchen was sitting across from her. She wanted to pull his hand away, but she was afraid that it would hurt his self-esteem. He stood up and said, "I'm going to the bathroom." Su Qingsang got up and left, leaving Hu Jinyao and Zhuo Hongchen sitting together, staring at each other. Zhuo Hongchen looked at Hu Jinyao. He didn't look like an unemployed person at all. Not only did he not look like an unemployed person, but he also didn't quite understand Hu Jinyao's slightly sloppy temperament. With Su Qingsang's personality, how could she like such a man? He was still thinking about whether he should ask Su Qingsang how they met when a pleasantly surprised voice sounded. Chapter 44. "Mr. Hua? Is that really you?" Before Zhuo Hongchen could react, he saw a middle-aged man in his 40s running over. When he saw Hu Jinyao, he smiled ingratiatingly. "I didn't expect to see you here. What a surprise." Hu Jinyao looked at the middle-aged man in front of him as if wondering who he was. "My surname is Liu. You may have forgotten. My company has a partnership with one of your downstream companies." Mr. Liu scratched his head. "Of course, our company is small and can't compare to the Hua Corporation." He spoke so much that Hu Jinyao didn't even have a chance to interrupt. Zhuo Hongchen looked at the scene in front of him and then looked at Hu Jinyao with narrowed eyes as if trying to remember who he was. Mr. Liu also knew that he was only a small fry, so he said a few more polite words. He talked about some matters related to his company. Seeing that Hu Jinyao didn't seem to be moved, he smiled awkwardly. As if he had just seen Zhuo Hongchen sitting opposite him, he immediately made an exaggerated expression as if he suddenly realized something. "Mr. Hua, are you talking to someone? Then I won't disturb you. Enjoy your meal. Enjoy your meal." Zhuo Hongchen looked at the middle-aged man fawning over Hu Jinyao, and his peach blossom eyes flashed with curiosity. After the middle-aged man finished speaking, he politely left 2 business cards, one for Hu Jingyao and the other for Zhuo Hongqin. He then turned to leave but ran into Su Qingsang on the way back from the bathroom. Su Qingsang had just seen the middle-aged man talking to Hu Jingyao. Now that she was here, he wanted to leave. She sat down next to Hu Jingyao, but the middle-aged man had already run to the other side. She instinctively looked at Hu Jingyao. Who was that? A former client of the company. Hu Jingyao said calmly and put the business card away. Su Qingsang nodded and didn't ask any more questions. She didn't know much about business. But since Hu Jingyao had resigned and a client still came to greet him, didn't that mean that this person was quite capable? Zhuo Hongqin's expression changed slightly after Hu Jingyao finished talking about the client. His gaze moved from Su Qingsang to Hu Jingyao. Such an attentive attitude? Just a client? What's more, the other party clearly said that he had worked with a subsidiary company. Who was this Hu Jingyao? Mr. Hu. Zhuo Hongqin was about to speak when the waiter began to serve the dishes. Before he could finish his sentence, Hu Jingyao started to feed him with dog food. He helped Su Qingsang peel the prawns and pick out the fish bones. In fact, because Zhuo Hongqin had spent too much time in the operating theater, most of the time he preferred fish over other meats. However, looking at Hu Jingyao's actions, he suddenly felt that the fresh meat was not delicious. He really liked Su Qingsang. He had liked her since the first day she started her internship at the hospital. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about pursuing her, but he knew Su Qingsang's personality better. If he failed in his pursuit, he might not even be able to be her friend. Under such circumstances, he was stunned into silence. He thought that Su Qingsang would do as she said and only get married in her 30s. Senior brother Zhuo, don't you like the food here? Why aren't you eating? Hu Jingyao removed the bones from another piece of fish and put it into Su Qingsang's bowl. Su Qingsang felt very uncomfortable. It wasn't like she didn't have hands. She wasn't used to being taken care of by Hu Jingyao like this. However, Hu Jingyao did it many times. She wanted to stop him. However, Hu Jingyao's words reminded her that Zhuo Hongqin was sitting across from her. If she refused, wouldn't it be embarrassing for him? Su Qingsang had never been married, but her EQ wasn't low. Chapter 45. Wuxiao. What Wuxiao? Su Qingsang hadn't swallowed the fish in her mouth yet. She glanced at Hu Jingyao with a puzzled expression. Nothing. Hu Jingyao scooped a bowl of soup and placed it in front of Su Qingsang. I used to be the youngest and the most handsome in my company, so they like to call me that. Su Qingsang's mouth twitched. Could this person be any more thick-skinned? She almost choked on the fish. Not only her, but even Zhuo Hongqin almost couldn't hold his chopsticks. He had seen thick-skinned people, but he had never seen someone so thick-skinned. What? Am I not handsome? Hu Jingyao reached out to hold Su Qingsang's face as he spoke, letting her look at him. Is your husband not handsome? Su Qingsang felt that her face was about to burn. How could this person be so thick-skinned? Stop it. There were people around. I'm not. Hu Jingyao didn't care if there were people around. Honey, you haven't said whether I am handsome or not. Handsome, handsome, handsome. Su Qingsang couldn't stand him anymore. She reached out to grab his hand. You are the most handsome in the world, okay? That's more like it. Hu Jingyao let go of his hand as he spoke, but he didn't move away. Instead, he leaned over and kissed Su Qingsang's face. In my heart, my wife is also the most beautiful in the world. If there was a hole in the ground, Su Qingsang would have crawled into it. She turned around and saw Zhuo Hongqin's stunned expression. She was so embarrassed that she could die. Senior, don't mind him. He's just like that. It's okay. Zhuo Hongqin looked down. The last spark of hope in his heart was extinguished. You guys are so close. Who was close to him? Su Qingsang wouldn't admit it. But she couldn't deny it now. Hu Jingyao, on the other hand, knew how to take advantage of the situation. He reached out his long arms and pulled her into his arms. He grinned, revealing his white teeth. Yes, we are very close. Zhuo Hongqin didn't feel hopeful anymore. He only felt bitterness in his heart. He was indeed too slow. For the rest of the time, he didn't know the taste of his food. He didn't even know what he was eating. Su Qingsang, on the other hand, was surprised to see him pick up some dishes from time to time and stuff them into his mouth. But soon she understood. After staying abroad for so long, it was definitely better to stay at home. She even ate food that she didn't want to eat. It was obvious how homesick she was. He was no longer surprised. Her extra glances made Hu Jingyao more and more eager to please her. As a result, 2 out of the 3 of them ate uncomfortably. Finally, the meal ended in a strange atmosphere where everyone had their own thoughts. The three of them walked out of the restaurant together. It was still light when they came, but now it was completely dark. Let's go. Honey, let's go home. Hua Jinyao led Su Qingsang to his car. Zhuo Hongchen stopped in his tracks. He still had the name card in his pocket. He thought about it and decided to remind Su Qingsang. Qingsang? Zhuo Hongchen wanted to say that Hua Jinyao was not simple. He even wanted to tell her not to trust people too much. But all the words that came to his mouth seemed too weak and powerless. The scene of the two of them eating affectionately was still engraved in his mind. Su Qingsang was already married. She was already married. With Su Qingsang's intelligence, how could she not know what kind of person that man was? Maybe he was just joking when he said she was unemployed. Why did he have to remind her that she was annoying? Senior? He was so serious. What did he want to say? Su Qingsang blinked her watery eyes and looked at him. Chapter 46. It's okay. Zhuo Hongchen smiled and reached out his hand. I think I haven't congratulated you on your marriage. It should be more formal. Su Qingsang was amused by his gesture. Senior, we don't have to be like this. But she still reached out to shake Zhuo Hongchen's hand. Senior, you have to work hard too. Zhuo Hongchen couldn't hide the bitterness on his face. Yes. I have to work hard too. I'm just afraid I won't be able to find someone like you who can move my heart. Hua Jinyao looked at Zhuo Hongchen's hand. It was such an eyesore. He wanted to chop it off. Before he chopped off Zhuo Hongchen's hand, he pulled his hand back. Hua Jinyao raised his eyebrows. At least he knew what was good for him. Without waiting for Zhuo Hongchen to get into the car, he put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist and walked to his car. Su Qingsang only had time to wave at Zhuo Hongchen, but Zhuo Hongchen didn't even have time to wave back before they left. Honey, I'm too full. Let's go watch a movie. No, I have to work tomorrow. It's okay. It won't take long. But my thesis, okay. It's time to get off work. Can you stop thinking about work? Hua Jinyao. He couldn't hear the rest of the conversation, but Su Qingsang's tone didn't sound like she was angry. Zhuo Hongchen realized that it was the first time he heard it. Maybe in Su Qingsang's heart, Hua Jinyao was really different. Could he give up now? He reminded himself, but he couldn't give up just like that. Forget it. He would observe for a while longer. If Su Qingsang was really happy, it would not be too late for him to let go. Hua Jinyao couldn't hear Zhuo Hongchen's thoughts. He was trying to persuade Su Qingsang to watch a movie. Speaking of which, they hadn't been on a date yet. I really don't have time. Her thesis was very important. Su Qingsang really didn't want to spend time on these unimportant things. I want to go home. 2 hours. 2 hours it is. Hua Jinyao, I want to go home. They were only a fake marriage. Would he really think of himself as her husband and want to interfere with her affairs? Su Qingsang's face darkened. Seeing that, Hua Jinyao raised his hands in surrender. All right. Let's go home. He seemed to have realized that his tone just now was not very good. Su Qingsang felt a little uncomfortable. He wanted to apologize, but he couldn't bring himself to do so. She turned around and looked out of the window. As the headlights flashed past her eyes, she thought about the series of events that had happened in less than a week. Hua Jinyao. I'm not a good wife candidate. No one gave her a demonstration, no one told her how to be a good wife. In fact, she didn't know what to do either. If you regret it, we can. The word divorce was still in his throat when he heard a squeak. The car stopped by the roadside. Su Qingsang was startled and turned to look at Hua Jinyao. He was looking at her too. His gaze was deep, and it was a seriousness that she rarely saw. Su Qingsang. Hua Jinyao's voice was soft but firm. I won't regret it and I won't get a divorce. You, don't ever mention the word divorce again. Chapter 47. Only then did Su Qingsang realize that she might have gone too far. He didn't do anything wrong. She was the one who said she was going to get married, and she was the one who couldn't get into it. Thinking of this, she suddenly felt that she was being a little unreasonable. Before she could think of how to apologize, Hua Jinyao's expression suddenly changed. He reached out and put his arm around her shoulder, then moved his face close to hers. Su Qingsang was a little nervous. He wasn't really angry, was he? Unexpectedly, the guy suddenly grinned. That overly bright smile made Su Qingsang feel dizzy. Was he okay? Honey, it's really hard to get a wife now that there are more men than women. It wasn't easy for me to get a wife. You wouldn't have the heart to see me be a bachelor again, would you? The corners of Su Qingsang's mouth twitched. This person really couldn't be serious for more than 3 minutes. Hua Jinyao. So, you'd better be aware that we have to be together for the rest of our lives. Don't talk about divorce in the future. Su Qingsang was speechless. Hua Jinyao's unexpected behavior made her completely at a loss for how to respond. Let's go. Let's go home. Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinyao's nonchalant face, and the guilt in her heart faded a lot. The corners of her mouth unconsciously rose a little. Well, actually, it was quite good for a person like him to have such a personality. Whether he was happy or unhappy, he showed it on his face, simple and direct. It wasn't complicated to get along with such a person at all. It was quite good. It was really quite good. When Su Qingsang got up in the morning, Hua Jinyao was already up, as he had been for the past few days. She found that she got up very early. No matter how late she went to bed the night before, she would definitely get up early the next morning. Looking at the bed, she didn't feel as awkward as when she got up the first morning. This was also due to Hua Jinyao's gentlemanly nature. Other than hugging her to sleep every night, he didn't do anything else. She breathed a sigh of relief at his behavior. She could accept holding a wedding with him, and she could accept sleeping in the same bed with him. However, she really wasn't ready to have an intimate relationship with a man who was almost a stranger. After washing up and walking out of the living room, she found that Hua Jinyao had returned. He seemed to have the habit of running in the morning. She saw him in his sportswear every morning. Good morning, wife. Hua Jinyao smiled so brightly that Su Qingsang was almost dazzled by his smile. What are you laughing at? White teeth. However, Hua Jinyao's teeth were quite white. Su Qingsang realized that she had missed the point. Eat. She shouldn't have paid attention to his looks. After all, this person's appearance was too alluring. After lunch, Su Qingsang picked up her bag and went to work. When she left, she glanced at Hua Jinyao warily. Was he going to send her off today? Honey, I need a ride. As expected, the moment Hua Jinyao stood up, Su Qingsang knew something was wrong. It's not on the way. I forgot to tell you. I found a job yesterday. It's near your hospital. He found a job so quickly. What job? What do you do? Just like before. It's just meeting clients and running errands. Su Qingsang bit her lip and looked at Hua Jinyao's face with confusion. He looked like he was saying, I'm great, come and praise me. Was it an illusion? Right? Honey? Hua Jinyao threw himself in front of her in the next second. This sudden approach made Su Qingsang very uncomfortable. She wanted to step back, but he reached out and held her shoulder. Chapter 48. Su Qingsang opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. She watched as Hua Jinyao, who was nearly 190 centimeters tall, clung to her like a large golden retriever, asking for praise. It was a strange feeling, but she didn't think it was strange. Yes, you should be praised. Su Qingsang said perfunctorily. What company? It's just an ordinary company, Wang Yao said. Hua Jinyao suddenly reached out and hugged Su Qingsang as he spoke. I found a job. Honey, why aren't you excited at all? Su Qingsang's mouth twitched. You found a job. Why was she excited? You see, I found a job, which means that I can support myself in the future. It means that I don't need you to support me. As long as I work hard, I can support you. You said it's bad news? Su Qingsang's mouth twitched. It was hard to empathize with the excitement on Hua Jinyao's face. Although her salary wasn't high, she really didn't need him to support her. However, since he said so, she didn't want to spoil his mood. Yes, it's good news. You're very good. Then, since I'm so good, shouldn't you give me some reward? Reward? What reward? What reward? Before Su Qingsang could ask the second half of the sentence, she saw Hua Jinyao's face getting bigger and bigger in front of her. Then she felt the warm touch on her lips. Her eyes suddenly widened, and she stared at Hua Jinyao in front of her. Her slightly dazed look obviously pleased Hua Jinyao. Originally, he only planned to have a taste, but now he wanted to tease her. He kissed her hard on her lips. Su Qingsang's face was as hot as fire. Hua Jinyao knew that it was time to stop. After kissing her, he quickly backed away. I what? There was a smile in his eyes, which were as bright as stars. Su Qingsang was almost stunned for a moment. After realizing her reaction, Su Qingsang blushed and quickly took a step back. Hua Jinyao continued to tease her. You haven't told me what happened to me. What happened to him? He was shameless. Su Qingsang was thin-skinned. She really couldn't compare to a shameless person like Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao. Thank you for the reward, wife. Hua Jinyao grinned, revealing his white teeth. Don't worry. I'll work hard. Su Qingsang gritted her teeth and glared at him. Without thinking, she took the key and walked out. Honey, wait for me. Hu Jingyao quickly chased after Su Qingsang, but Su Qingsang didn't want to pay any attention to him. Unfortunately, this person was very thick-skinned and didn't know when to stop. Honey, if I work hard, can you reward me next time? Not good. Su Qingsang covered her ears and pretended not to hear it. Unfortunately, he couldn't. Wife, you have to give me some motivation, right? He locked the door and reached out to take her hand while they waited for the elevator. Su Qingsang tried to break free but failed. He tried again but he still couldn't break free. Su Qingsang gritted her teeth and looked at him. Hu Jingyao, you. Just as she was about to explode, someone walked out of the house opposite. Seeing a familiar neighbor, Su Qingsang wanted to withdraw her hand, but it was too late. She awkwardly greeted the person. This person lived across from her. Her surname was Wang, so she called her Sister Wang. Sister Wang looked at Hu Jingyao, then looked at Su Qingsang and said with a face full of gossip, "Little Su, is this your boyfriend?" Chapter 49. Oh. Sister Wang said meaningfully. Sister Wang looked Hu Jingyao up and down, then winked at Su Qingsang and said, "Little Su, you have good taste. Your husband is quite handsome." Su Qingsang was extremely embarrassed, but Hu Jingyao didn't have any self-awareness. "Thank you for the compliment. Sister Wang is also very beautiful." "Haha, I'm old. I'm not as beautiful as Qingsang." Sister Wang was praised and she laughed happily. It was the first time Su Qingsang had seen such an exaggerated expression. She really never knew that Sister Wang had such a side to her. She glanced at Hu Jingyao indifferently. This person was really amazing. They chatted all the way down the elevator. Su Qingsang just watched Hu Jingyao and Sister Wang chat happily, and they even agreed to go to Sister Wang's house for dinner next time. Su Qingsang was amazed. After getting in the car, she turned to look at Hu Jingyao and said, "Now I believe that you're running a business. You're really good at talking." He was so good at talking that he could even make a dead person look alive. "You're so good at making me happy that you're so good at talking." Honey. Hu Jingyao didn't know how to write the word embarrassed at all. "I'm trying to get closer to my neighbor. Shouldn't you praise me?" Su Qingsang's mouth twitched. She didn't know what to say about Hu Jingyao's shamelessness. However, the person who was asking for praise didn't have any self-awareness at all, and he moved closer to her. Before she could react, he kissed her on the cheek. "Honey doesn't want to praise me, so I can only ask for a reward like this." Su Qingsang blushed again. "You, all right. Although I'm not very satisfied with this reward. But don't worry, honey. I will work hard and strive for more rewards." As he spoke, he glanced at her body meaningfully. His suggestive gaze made Su Qingsang feel uncomfortable. Thinking of the more profound reward that Hu Jingyao talked about, some extremely indescribable images flashed through her mind unconsciously. Shaking her head, she realized that she seemed to be indulging Hu Jingyao more and more. "Drug. Otherwise you'll be late for work." "Honey." Hu Jingyao didn't seem to know what it meant to quit while he was ahead. "Do you agree?" "Agree to what?" "Honey, you're the best." Hu Jingyao kissed her again. This time he didn't kiss her cheek. Lips. Su Qingsang resisted the urge to go berserk and glared at him. "Are you going to drive or not?" Open. Open." Hu Jingyao seemed to be in a very good mood. He even hummed a tune as he stepped on the accelerator. His voice was clear and deep. Even though he was humming like this, it was surprisingly not unpleasant to listen to. The corners of Su Qingsang's lips curled up as she looked at him. He turned around and looked out of the window. For the first time he felt that getting married felt good. Everyone in the department could see that Dr. Su was in a good mood. A few doctors winked at Su Qingsang from time to time, their expressions full of teasing. Su Qingsang felt very uncomfortable. Fortunately, the department was very busy today. One was a natural delivery, and the other was a cesarean section. The situation during the disembowelment was very critical. She followed her teacher, who was also the director of the department, to deal with it for the whole day. Finally, it was the afternoon and he could finally take a breather. However, she found that there was a pregnant woman who looked familiar in the ward. Li Rongrong. Chapter 50. Didn't Wei Lenin tell her to abort the child? Why was she still pregnant? Su Qingsang thought about what Wei Lenin said that day and felt that it was ironic. Fortunately, she didn't believe him at all and didn't take his words to heart. But so what? It was none of her business. Whether Li Rongrong's child was there or not, it had nothing to do with her. She was a doctor and Li Rongrong was pregnant. That was all. However, when Su Qingsang went to the ward, she found that Li Rongrong was not in good condition. Doctor. Li Rongrong seemed to be very frightened. "Someone wants to kill my child." Someone wants to kill my child. She was so strong that Su Qingsang couldn't break free for a while. Calm down first. If you have anything to say it slowly. Doctor, I can't calm down. Someone is trying to kill my child. As Li Rongrong spoke, tears streamed down her cheeks. She looked so pitiful. It was even worse than the last time. Doctor. My boyfriend, he doesn't want me to get pregnant. He wants me to abort the baby. I wouldn't. He's going to attack me. Can I stay in the hospital? Can I? Last time, when Li Rongrong was kidnapped by Wei Lenin for an abortion, she ran away at the critical moment. But it affected the fetus. She was like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bough. She was angry that Wei Lenin had come looking for her again and wanted her to abort the child. Doctor, you have to help me. You must help me. Don't let anyone abort my child, okay? I don't want to abort the child. Miss Li, calm down. Su Qingsang grabbed her hand and said, this is a hospital. If you don't want to, no one can perform an abortion for you. Really? Are you telling the truth? Li Rongrong grabbed Su Qingsang's hand tightly again. The fear in her eyes did not seem to be fake. Of course. Su Qingsang comforted him for a long time and repeatedly promised that no one would help her with an abortion. He also promised that if she wanted to give birth to the child, she would definitely be able to. In the end, he gave her another checkup and made sure that there were no problems before he turned around and left. After she left, the weakness and fear on Li Rongrong's face disappeared. What replaced it was a hint of viciousness. Su Qingsang was still thinking about Li Rongrong when she returned to her office. Speaking of which, this person was indeed pitiful. She wasn't the only one who was pregnant. She just had to encounter Wei Lenin, that scumbag. She knew it even if she wanted to. Wei Lenin had forced Li Rongrong to abort the child. At that time he probably still wanted to be with her. Speaking of which, Su Qingsang even began to feel lucky. Fortunately, she discovered it in time, and fortunately she stopped the damage in time. Otherwise, if she really married someone like Wei Lenin, it would be a tragedy for her. Although she was not married to him, she was still married. Huo Jinyao's face flashed in her mind. He looked like he was begging for her praise and reward. A person like Huo Jinyao wouldn't do such a thing, would he? What are you thinking? Why do you look so love-struck? A cheerful female voice brought Su Qingsang back to reality. Mengwan? Tieske, you came back to your senses? Sure. Mengwan stepped forward and stood in front of her. She even stretched out her hand and waved in front of her. Tieske, it's really different after getting married. Look at this amorous little face. Do you miss your man? Su Qingsang blushed. She was really thinking about Huo Jinyao. But she wouldn't say that even if she was beaten to death. Chapter 51. I'm not as heartless as you. You don't hear from me after you get married. I'm here to look for you. What's up? Of course. Shi Mingwan patted her shoulder and said, as an unmarried person, I think I need to show some concern for you, a married woman. Go to hell. Su Qingsang hit her lightly with the back of her hand. Who's a woman? You. Shi Mingwan joked with Su Qingsang for a while, then looked at the time. It was almost time to get off work. Let's go, let's have dinner together tonight. Okay, Su Qingsang agreed. Before they got married, Shi Mingwan often had meals with her. He would even stay at her house at night. Let's go. The two of them went out of the door. Shi Mingwan drove her own car and was about to say that she was going to drive. Who knew that she would stop halfway? Wait. What happened? Su Qingsang saw her staring at the people in front of her. Shi Mingwan didn't wait for her to react and quickly rushed to the side of a tall man in front of her. Big brother? The man turned around and looked at Shi Mingwan. Who are you calling? Big brother. Are you a big brother? Miss, you've got the wrong person. After saying that, the man left without looking back. Shi Mingwan wanted to chase after him, but Su Qingsang grabbed her hand. Mingwan, what's wrong? He's my big brother. He's my big brother. As Shi Mingwan spoke, she broke free from Su Qingsang's hand and wanted to chase after him. Su Qingsang held her tightly. Are you sure? But he said you got the wrong person. I'm not mistaken. You haven't seen this big brother for more than 10 years, right? What if you've mistaken him for someone else? Shi Mingwan's body stiffened as she stared blankly ahead. A look of confusion flashed across her delicate and beautiful face. Yes, we haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. Maybe I was mistaken. Even if he didn't, her big brother didn't recognize her anymore. Mingwan. Su Qingsang was a little worried about her. Others might not know, but she did. Shi Mingwan accidentally got separated from her family when she was 12 years old. Then, by chance, she was saved by the big brother she mentioned. The two of them depended on each other and wandered outside for a year. Later, the two of them encountered bad people. She was stabbed and fell into a coma. When she woke up, she was already home. After she woke up, she kept saying that she wanted to find dear brother. But no one told her where dear brother was. The police even said there had never been a teenager at the scene. She didn't believe it and kept asking the police to find dear brother. She also kept pestering her parents to find dear brother for her. However, everyone treated her words as the babbling of a child. Only Shi Mengwan refused to give up. All these years, Shi Mengwan had been looking for the dear brother she mentioned. She believed that her year of wandering was not fake. She believed that dear brother's company for her was not fake. She had to find dear brother. Although Su Qingsang understood her obsession, she still felt that she was too persistent. Su Qingsang patted Shi Mengwan on the shoulder and comforted her silently. "Forget it, Mengwan. Let's go eat first." "All right." Shi Mengwan bit her lip and looked in the direction where the man had disappeared. How could it not be her big brother? They clearly looked so much alike. But the feeling he gave people was so cold. Her big brother wouldn't look at her like that. He definitely wouldn't. Chapter 52. Su Qingsang followed Shi Mengwan into the car. Seeing Shi Mengwan's disappointed look, she gently patted her on the shoulder. "Mengwan, if you ask me after so many years if you really can't find him, I will definitely find him." Shi Mengwan's gaze was unprecedentedly firm. "I will definitely find dear brother." Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. Shi Mengwan turned around and held her hand. "Don't worry, I will definitely find dear brother. I promised big brother that I would marry him when I grow up. How can I go back on my word?" Su Qingsang smiled at her. Nodding heavily, he said, "Yes, you can do it. I believe you will find it." Shi Mengwan smiled. It had been so many years. She had lost count of how many times her parents had lectured her about this. Su Qingsang was the only one who had always believed in her. She believed that she could find the big brother she had been talking about. "Thank you, Qingsang." "What are you talking about?" Su Qingsang rolled her eyes. "If you want to thank me, treat me to dinner." "No problem, let's go." Just like in the past, Su Qingsang and Shi Mengwan had dinner, chatted, and had fun for the whole night. On the one hand, she hadn't had a gathering with Shi Mengwan for a long time. On the other hand, she wanted to comfort Shi Mengwan's disappointed heart. After all, Shi Mengwan had been thinking about her dear brother, but she couldn't find him after searching for so long. The two women were having a great time. For a moment, she forgot that she was married. When she got home that night, she saw Hu Jinyao sitting in the living room. Only then did she remember that Hu Jinyao said he would pick her up. "Then, you're back?" Hu Jinyao looked at her without saying anything. The expression on his face seemed to be aggrieved. The corners of Su Qingsang's mouth twitched uncomfortably. "Have you eaten?" The grievance on Hu Jinyao's face seemed to have deepened. For some reason, Su Qingsang felt guilty. "Don't tell me you haven't eaten yet?" "No." Hu Jinyao looked at her with accusation in his eyes. "I said I would pick you up. But when I got there, you had already left." Hu Jinyao gritted his teeth. "I called you, but you didn't answer my call?" Only then did Su Qingsang remember that she had left her phone in the drawer before entering the operating room. "Sorry, I forgot." "Did you forget that I said I would pick you up? Or did you forget to answer your phone?" Hu Jinyao stood up and walked over to Su Qingsang, looking as if he was going to get even with her. Su Qingsang had actually forgotten about it. Every time she met Shi Mengwan looking for her, she would follow her out. How could she remember that she was married now? "Do you know that I've searched the entire hospital?" The accusation in Hu Jinyao's eyes became more obvious. "I even went to ask your security guard, only to find out that you had already left." "I'm sorry." Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. "My friend came to see me, so I went to dinner with her." "You didn't call your husband when you were eating with your friend?" Hu Jinyao's eyes widened as if she had committed an unforgivable crime. I forgot." However, Hu Jinyao would probably be angrier if he heard that. "I am your husband," Hu Jinyao said firmly. "How could you forget that?" "I didn't." Su Qingsang didn't sound confident when she said that. Hu Jinyao could tell. Chapter 53. He went out to dinner with her, invited her to a movie, and she said that she would come back to write her thesis. But now she went out to dinner with a friend and ate so late? Hu Jinyao suddenly stood in front of Su Qingsang and stared at her. "Is your friend a man or a woman?" "She's a woman," Su Qingsang answered and looked at Hu Jinyao in shock. Was he jealous? Hu Jinyao seemed to not see the shock in her eyes. He stepped forward and stood in front of her. I waited for you until now and haven't eaten yet. How are you going to compensate me for my loss? You. Su Qingsang hadn't digested her thoughts and was led astray by his words. What do you want to eat? Should I order takeout for you? She didn't know how to cook, so she couldn't cook for him. I don't want takeout. Hu Jingyao looked disgusted. Su Qingsang was a little hesitant. How about I make a bowl of noodles for you? She only knew how to cook some simple noodles. She had tried to make it once or twice when she went abroad for an exchange. It didn't taste good, but it was barely edible. No. Hu Jingyao stepped forward a little more. I want to eat something else. Then what do you want to eat? I'll accompany you. Really? Really? If it was just a meal with him, she could still do it. After all, she was the one who stood him up first. Su Qingsang found that Hu Jingyao was standing very close to her. She was shocked and wanted to step back, but it was too late. The man stepped forward, picked her up, and took her to the direction of the room. Hu Jingyao. What was he going to do? I want to eat now, you. Su Qingsang's eyes widened. Before she could react, she was already in Hu Jingyao's arms. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. There was a flash of astonishment in her eyes, and her body instantly stiffened. Hu Jingyao wanted to go further, but he didn't. He didn't go further. When he saw her shocked and almost imperceptible resistance, he curled his lips and said, How about you compensate me? Not much. Su Qingsang almost shook her head. Then she remembered that they were husband and wife, so she stopped and said, I'm just teasing you. Hu Jingyao laughed but didn't let go of her. Although I really want to, Su Qingsang didn't know how to continue the conversation. She blushed. She didn't know what to do with Hu Jingyao. Since you won't let me eat you, you can only make it up to me in other ways. What way? Su Qingsang had a bad feeling about this. Let me eat the noodles. The ambiguous word made Su Qingsang blush. However, Hu Jingyao was serious. You just said that you would be down there. Realizing that she was teased by Hu Jingyao again, Su Qingsang blushed again. After glaring at him hatefully, she quickly went to the kitchen. But when she was cooking, she couldn't help but think of Hu Jingyao's teasing just now, which made her feel very uncomfortable. When Su Qingsang realized that she had overcooked the noodles, she forced herself to bring them out. She clearly saw the smile in Hu Jingyao's eyes. She couldn't help but glare at him. If you want to eat it, then eat it. Hu Jingyao sat down and looked at the bowl of noodles, which didn't look good or smell good. He picked it up and ate happily. Yes, my wife is amazing. The noodles are delicious. Could this person's ability to lie through his teeth be any better? He dared to say it, but Su Qingsang didn't dare to admit it. Her mind was in a mess just now. The noodles had been overcooked by her, but they were delicious. Chapter 54. Su Qingsang couldn't bear to listen to his nonsense. She stood up and was about to go back to the room, but Hu Jingyao stretched out his long arm and pulled her onto his lap. Su Qingsang whispered, You, wife? Hu Jingyao put his arms around her waist and stared at her with his starry eyes. You're so nice. Su Qingsang felt a little uncomfortable. She didn't think she was very nice. Let go of me. My wife is so nice. Hu Jingyao added, The noodles are delicious. This sentence was too ambiguous. Su Qingsang refused to respond. Hu Jingyao suddenly approached her and said, You're such a good wife. She worked so hard to cook noodles for me. Should I be grateful? Hu Jingyao's lips fell on her face and he kissed her hard. Hu Jingyao. He had enough. She thought he was really grateful to her, but he still wanted to take advantage of her. My wife is so nice. Hu Jingyao kissed the other side of her face again. Kiss. Su Qingsang's face was burning. That's enough. Wife. You're so nice. I've decided to give you a gift. Hu Jingyao picked her up as he spoke. When Su Qingsang was so scared that she wrapped her arms around his neck to prevent herself from falling, he kissed her lips again. I've decided to give myself to you. Are you happy? Su Qingsang was startled and took a step back. When she almost fell, Hu Jingyao held her waist. The moment her body was carried back to the room and placed on the bed, Su Qingsang couldn't help but be nervous. Hu Jingyao smiled, showing his white teeth. Well, I'll give myself to you. No need. Su Qingsang finally reacted. As his body was on top of hers, she quickly dodged to the side. I want it. Courtesy demands reciprocity. You gave me noodles, so I should give myself to you as well. There's really no need. It's just a bowl of noodles. Su Qingsang felt that if she continued, she would never be able to look at noodles again. She quickly got out of bed and ran in the direction of the bathroom. I'm tired. I'm going to take a shower and sleep. When the bathroom door closed, Su Qingsang seemed to be able to hear Hu Jinyao's laughter. This guy is really... That night of course Hu Jinyao couldn't give himself to Su Qingsang. Just like in the past, the two of them slept purely. What was different from the past was... Hu Jinyao hugged her and kissed her left and right for a long time. My wife is so good, of course I have to reward you. Honey, you have to get used to my closeness. I will make you more and more accustomed to me, and then you will never be able to leave me. Honey, you smell so good. I love it. Honey, do you want me to reward you? Words like that made Su Qingsang blush. In the end, she had to pretend to be asleep to avoid Hu Jinyao's evil voice. That night, Su Qingsang had a dream. She dreamed that she had a golden retriever. When the golden retriever saw her coming home, it rushed over and licked and kissed her. Just as she was about to dodge, she realized that the golden retriever had turned into Hu Jinyao. Su Qingsang was startled awake. When she got up in the morning, she found that Hu Jinyao was not there. She went to the dining room, but she didn't see Hu Jinyao walk in with a bag of breakfast as usual. The breakfast was placed on the table. There was a note on it, saying that he had to go on an urgent business trip and might not be back for 3 to 5 days. Su Qingsang breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time she felt a little disappointed. It had only been a few days, but she seemed to be getting more and more used to seeing Hu Jinyao every morning. That didn't seem to be a bad feeling. When Su Qingsang calmed down and went to work, she found that many people were looking at her. Those curious and inquisitive gazes made her a little uncomfortable. She smiled and nodded to a few colleagues, but found that they all had stiff faces. Then she quickly twitched the corners of her mouth, smiled awkwardly and quickly looked away. Chapter 55. When Su Qingsang returned to the gynecology and obstetrics department, her supervisor, Director Zhang Qiubai, and the deputy director, Qin Xiaoyu, seemed to be talking about something. Seeing her come in, the two of them fell silent. Zhang Qiubai looked at Su Qingsang, who was confused. He waved at her and said, "Come with me." Zhang Qiubai was the director of the obstetrics and gynecology department and had her own office. Su Qingsang stood in front of the table opposite her, feeling a little nervous. "Teacher? What happened?" "Qingsang, did you pick up a pregnant woman called Li Rongrong yesterday?" "Yes." Su Qingsang didn't know why she suddenly mentioned Li Rongrong. "What's wrong? What's the matter?" "She came to the hospital to protect her baby, but you prescribed her mifepristone." Zhang Qiubai's expression was solemn. "Mifepristone tablets?" Su Qingsang was stunned. "That's impossible. Let's not talk about the matter between her and Wei Lenin being over. Even if it wasn't, as a professional doctor, she couldn't casually give such medicine to a pregnant woman." "Is it impossible?" Zhang Qiubai sighed in her heart. "She took the medicine yesterday and had a stomachache. This morning she took the prescription you gave her to the hospital office. Now the entire academy knows about it." "Teacher, I believe you." Zhang Qiubai interrupted her. She had taught her apprentice for several years. How could she not know what kind of person she was? "But now the prescription she handed over to the hospital has your handwriting on it." "Qingsang, I don't want to say this, but the situation is not good." She could trust Su Qingsang. She believed that she would not do such a thing. But others might not believe it. What's more, that woman had caused such a huge commotion early in the morning. The impact was very bad. Su Qingsang pressed her lips into a straight line. From the first day she became a doctor, no, it should be said that from the moment she decided to study medicine, she knew where a doctor's bottom line and rules were. "I demand a confrontation." Su Qingsang was thinking about how to turn the situation around. "Teacher, thank you for believing in my innocence. But I want the others to believe it." Being a doctor was different from other professions. If she did something wrong, her license would be revoked. Zhang Qiubai agreed. This disciple of hers was the one she had the highest hopes for and the one she liked the most. Willing to study, calm and rational. He usually didn't talk much and didn't cause any trouble. This kind of personality was quite likable. She was really unlucky this time. "Okay, I'll go with you to the hospital office later." "Thank you, teacher." Although Su Qingsang felt that the situation was a little serious, it was still within the scope of control. However, when he really arrived at the hospital, he realized that he had thought too easily. Mifepristone tablets were clearly written on the prescription she had written. "I didn't write this." Although the handwriting was similar, it was not written by her. "If you didn't write it, then did I write it?" Li Rongrong covered her abdomen with one hand and pointed at Su Qingsang with the other. "Dr. Su, I begged you yesterday. I told you that I want this child. Why are you doing this to me?" "I didn't." Su Qingsang was extremely calm. It was useless to not be calm at this time. I wrote the prescription on the top, but I didn't write the bottom. Dr. Su. Chapter 56. Li Rongrong's mouth was wide open. She stared blankly at Su Qingsang's face. She couldn't understand what Su Qingsang meant. After saying that, Su Qingsang turned to face the leaders of the council and Zhang Qiubai. Director Li, Director Lin. This matter is very serious. It concerns my reputation. I strongly urge you to call the police and ask them to investigate. Other than Director Lin of the hospital office, Vice Director Li was the most senior among the people who came today. In addition to the other leaders, Zhang Qiubai and the Deputy Director of the Obstetrics and Gynecology Department were also there. This matter was indeed troublesome. Su Qingsang's calm attitude made everyone else in the room heave a sigh of relief. After Su Qingsang graduated, it was decided that she would stay in the hospital. She was young and promising. She was excellent in all aspects. She was a talent. If she was really expelled or punished just like that, she wouldn't be able to do anything. The hospital's reputation would not be good. Little Su, are you sure? Deputy Director Li asked. He still valued Su Qingsang a lot. I'm sure. Su Qingsang nodded heavily. She wrote the prescription herself. What else could she not understand? Director Li, please believe me. Li Rongrong didn't expect this turn of events. She glared at Su Qingsang. Her eyes were about to bleed. Wei Lenin came from a good family. His family owned a few small companies. He was also a man of striking appearance. She had been dating Wei Lenin for a few months. That man said he wanted to get married, and he got married without caring about her. To please the woman he was going to marry, he not only broke up with her, but he also ignored her. She didn't know who that woman was, but she was a rich young lady. Of course she wouldn't let it go. In fact, she didn't try so hard to get close to Wei Lenin just to fall in love with him. So she took advantage of Wei Lenin's good mood that day to ask him out for a drink, and when he was drunk, she led him to her bed. She even promised that she knew he was going to get married and that she wouldn't affect him marrying other women. She even agreed that if Wei Lenin wanted to, he could come to her anytime. She really loved him. She loved him so much that she didn't care about anything else. This kind of promise greatly satisfied Wei Lenin's vanity. Not to mention that although Su Qingsang had agreed to marry him, she had been putting on airs. Not only did she not allow him to touch her, she did not even allow him to enter her house. He was a normal man. Coupled with Li Rongrong's gentleness, the two of them ended up together again. He just didn't expect that Li Rongrong would be pregnant, and Su Qingsang happened to find out. This way the marriage between Wei Lenin and Su Qingsang would be annulled. Although Wei Lenin didn't love Su Qingsang, he was using this opportunity to get close to the Su family. In order to save Su Qingsang, he could only ask Li Rongrong to have an abortion. He thought that by aborting the child, he could save Su Qingsang. He didn't know that Su Qingsang had found a man in such a short time. In his anger, he would never forgive Li Rongrong. Li Rongrong was still thinking of marrying into a rich family with the help of a child. But when she realized that even if she had a child, she wouldn't be able to marry Wei Lenin. When she learned that Wei Lenin wanted her to abort the child because of Su Qingsang, she went crazy. He was bent on revenge. Revenge for Wei Lenin's heartlessness. Of course, there was also Su Qingsang's hypocrisy. She didn't know that Su Qingsang was already married. She only knew that Wei Lenin wanted her to abort the child because of her. That was why today's incident happened. Now that she heard Su Qingsang say that she would call the police, Li Rongrong suddenly burst into tears. What do you mean? Do you mean that I've wronged you? She cried like a pear blossom in the rain. With her appearance, she looked especially weak and helpless. Chapter 57. In order to avoid Su Qingsang's direct accusation, Li Rongrong was determined to put the blame on her today. Who else could it be? Tell me. Who would want to harm my child like this? Who else could it be? Li Rongrong almost screamed out loud. She stared at Su Qingsang, her eyes full of accusation. Miss Li, calm down. Su Qingsang looked serious. A doctor is like a parent. Why would I harm you? Because of Wei Lenin, Li Rongrong said hatefully. Because I am pregnant with Wei Lenin's child. He forced me to abort the child in order to marry you. You are his accomplice. Li Rongrong finally came to her senses. She spoke very quickly and explained what had just happened clearly. But the version she said was completely different. She and Wei Lenin were truly in love. Su Qingsang, on the other hand, took advantage of her rich family background to intervene. Wei Lenin had to be with Su Qingsang because of the pressure from his family. But she was pregnant. In order not to offend Su Qingsang's family, he forced her to abort the child. It's you, it's all because of you. Everyone looked at each other and then at Su Qingsang. Zhang Qiubai remembered that Hu Jinyao said he was Su Qingsang's husband when he came. His surname wasn't Wei, right? But only the people in her department and the departments that cooperated with her knew about it. Others naturally didn't know. For a moment, whether it was the hospital administration, the director or the other people present, they were all shocked by the sudden truth. They knew that Su Qingsang was married. But no one knew about the inside of her marriage. Now that Li Rongrong said it, they all looked at Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang was stared at by so many people, but she didn't feel nervous at all. She looked at Li Rongrong calmly. I said, we can call the police to verify the handwriting. The handwriting can also be written by someone else. Li Rongrong had calmed down. There are so many people in the hospital. It's not impossible for you to find someone to write it. But that doesn't mean you didn't prescribe it. Su Qingsang pressed her lips into a straight line and looked at Li Rongrong's face. I prescribed the medicine to you yesterday. But you just made a fuss today. Why didn't you tell me last night when you found out that you prescribed the wrong medicine? Li Rongrong clenched her teeth and looked aggrieved. I found out yesterday. I thought you made a mistake. But at that time I didn't know about your relationship with Wei Lenin. After I found out about it, I realized that you wanted to harm me. Li Rongrong's performance could be said to be both singing and acting. If Su Qingsang hadn't been involved in this, she would have applauded for Li Rongrong. The dean and vice dean Li looked at each other. No one spoke. Everyone was silent. Zhang Qiubai wanted to say something, but Su Qingsang took a step forward and stood in front of Li Rongrong. Miss Li, do you know that what you said is only based on the fact that I am with Wei Lenin? If I wasn't with Wei Lenin, then everything you said wouldn't be valid. Isn't it? But you are obviously with Wei Lenin. This was what Li Rongrong found out later. A few days ago you had your wedding. Wei Lenin wanted me to abort the child. You still dare to say that you... Su Qingsang interrupted her rudely. She really didn't want this to go on. Not only was it a waste of her time, but it was also a waste of Zhang Qiubai and the dean's time. Chapter 58. I am indeed married. But when I found out that Wei Lenin was with you, I broke up with him. So the person I married wasn't Wei Lenin. Since this is the case, what reason do I have to harm you? Impossible. Li Rongrong didn't believe it at all. I don't believe it. You and Wei Lenin. The man I married is called Hu Jinyao. As for Wei Lenin, we have nothing to do with him now. Miss Li, I hope you understand that there is no point in slandering me like this. Impossible. Li Rongrong didn't believe her at all. If you didn't marry Wei Lenin, then why did he ask me to abort the child? Why? You'll have to ask Wei Lenin about that. Su Qingsang took a deep breath, turned around and looked at the leaders of the hospital administration, Deputy Dean Li and Zhang Qiubai. President Li, Director Lin and Teacher Zhang, you can go back first. This was all a misunderstanding. It's fine now. The leaders present looked at each other and nodded when they saw Zhang Qiubai's confident gaze. Seeing that they were leaving, Li Rongrong said anxiously, That's impossible. Just because you said it wasn't Wei Lenin that you married? Why don't you ask your husband to come out and confront him? Miss Li, Su Qingsang had had enough of her unreasonable behavior. What else do you want? I told you I didn't do it. In fact, you know full well. If you want to ruin my reputation and throw away this doctor's robe, you can't do it with just these 5 simple words. Since that's the case, what's the point of pestering me again and again? Li Rongrong knew what she said was true. Not to mention anything else, just the relationship with the Su family was still there. She didn't know what was going on, but she knew that Su Qingsang was the daughter of a noble family. Her hatred grew. Wei Lenin forced me to abort the child because of you. You. What did Wei Lenin do? Go find Wei Lenin. A clear male voice that didn't belong there rang out. That voice made Su Qingsang's heart skip a beat. She quickly turned around and looked at the door. She didn't know when Hu Jinyao had arrived. His slender legs strode inside. He had a tall figure and a handsome face. When he saw Su Qingsang looking at him, he smiled at her. Before Su Qingsang could react, he was already walking towards Li Rongrong. Past her. When facing Li Rongrong, the smile on his face disappeared. At this moment, his expression was solemn and cold. If one looked closely, one would find displeasure and gloom in his eyes. Miss Li, if you want to settle the score with Wei Lenin, go ahead. But please stay away from my wife. Li Rongrong's eyes widened as she stared at the man in front of her, whose aura and looks were comparable to Wei Lenin's. She then looked at Su Qingsang. I'm Hu Jinyao. Hua Jinyao took a step forward and stood in front of Li Rongrong. His eyes, which were usually smiling, were now extremely sharp. He was already standing in front of Su Qingsang with his back to her, so she couldn't see his face. But Li Rongrong could see it clearly. His eyes were like that of a wolf and a tiger. Her body suddenly trembled a little. Qingsang is my wife and I'm her husband. Do you have a problem? Li Rongrong's lips moved, but she couldn't shake her head. A person like Wei Lenin isn't good enough for Qingsang. Hua Jinyao's voice was extremely cold, and his words were loud and clear. It was so cold that Li Rongrong felt that it was the middle of winter, not the middle of June. Chapter 59. Qingsang is already married to me. She is my wife now. Please stay away from her in the future. Don't drag Qingsang into the mess between you and Wei Lenin. She has no interest in getting involved. He didn't threaten her, but Li Rongrong clearly felt the hidden meaning in his words. Her legs softened and she almost fell to the ground. Hua Jinyao's expression suddenly changed. He turned to look at Su Qingsang. After all, Qingsang already has such an outstanding husband like me. Why would she like a two-timing scumbag like Wei Lenin? Right, Qingsang? Su Qingsang didn't see the look in Hua Jinyao's eyes. She only saw the man jump in front of her like a golden retriever. He reached out and hugged her arm. His forehead almost touched her face. She blushed, thinking that there were other people in the office. She felt a little uncomfortable and pulled his hand. That's enough. Not enough. Hua Jinyao whispered into Su Qingsang's ear. If you promise to reward me when we go back, I will let you go. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang thought about what he meant by reward, and her face became more and more uncomfortable. I'll take that as a yes. Hua Jinyao let go and turned to look at the hospital leaders. I'm sorry to have caused you trouble because of Qingsang. But don't worry. Qingsang is a very responsible doctor. He would never do anything that went against medical ethics. This is actually my fault. I only heard from Qingsang that they were going to have a simple wedding and didn't invite the leaders to dinner. This is my fault. Next time, pick a time and I'll treat everyone to dinner. Mr. Hua, you're welcome. Zhang Qiubai had met Hua Jinyao before and had a very good impression of him. This was even better. I said just call me Little Hua. Then Su Qingsang watched Hua Jinyao act like he did the other day. He greeted everyone in the room. Then he put his arm around her shoulder. Qingsang, you're frightened. I'll take you back to the office. I have something to tell you. He looked at Zhang Qiubai. Teacher, you don't mind, right? I'll only take a few minutes. It's okay. I'm fine. Zhang Qiubai waved her hand. Hua Jinyao then looked at Deputy Director Li. Director Li, what do you think? He glanced at Li Rongrong out of the corner of his eye. His meaning was obvious. At this moment, Li Rongrong's face was pale, and she didn't look imposing at all. What else did Deputy Dean Li not understand? He waved his hand, indicating that they would handle this matter. Hua Jinyao was finally able to bring Su Qingsang back to her office. As soon as they entered the room, Hua Jinyao pulled Su Qingsang into his arms and gave her another loud kiss. Su Qingsang blushed. Looking at Hua Jinyao's playful look, she said, "Don't mess around. There are people outside. Don't worry, they know what's good for them. You won't come in." As Hua Jinyao spoke, he pressed Su Qingsang's body against the door and pressed his forehead against hers. I came here so anxiously to help you. Don't you know to reward me? You. Su Qingsang blushed. Didn't you say you were on a business trip? Yes. Hua Jinyao nodded. Looking at Su Qingsang's blushing face and the uncomfortable look on her face, he had an idea. But I remembered that I forgot something. So I came to see you again. What did you forget? When he moved to her apartment, he didn't bring much luggage. Did he forget to pack? Chapter 60. When Hua Jinyao spoke, he kissed her again. I forgot to kiss you goodbye. How could he be so shameless? It's not just a goodbye kiss. Hua Jinyao raised his eyebrows slightly, and there was a flash of calculation in his eyes. There's also the kisses these days, the morning kisses, and... He looked at Su Qingsang with a smile on his face. You're going to give me a reward today. I've helped you so much, so I have to double it. Tell me, how many times do you owe me? Who would do that? After all, Su Qingsang had been a doctor for so many years. She believed that she was used to many strange things. However, it was the first time she had seen Hua Jinyao act so shamelessly. I didn't ask you to help me. Even if you don't help me, I can handle it. In fact, if Hua Jinyao hadn't come, she could have solved it. But since he was here, it would have been faster. Tisk, honey. You're so heartless. Hua Jinyao covered his heart with one hand, looking as if he had suffered a great deal of damage. I'm your husband. I helped you so much just now and you don't appreciate it at all? How was she not grateful? She was very grateful. Let go of me first. They were in the hospital and she was very uncomfortable. However, Hu Jinyao stubbornly trapped her in his arms. You haven't told me how many times do you owe me? Hu Jinyao. Yes, I'm here. Stop it. Since you're not good at math, let's pay the first one first. Su Qingsang's protest was stopped by the kiss, and she had no time to react. She could only look at the magnified, smiling face in front of her. Her consciousness suddenly became a little chaotic. She wanted to push Hu Jinyao away, but after being kissed by him, her hands and feet began to become weak. She didn't hear the rest of what Hu Jinyao said after that. The continuous smacks, tisk, and the oh sound she made when she couldn't stand it anymore. She was embarrassed. Thinking that they were in the hospital, she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Finally, the bastard was willing to let go of her. Su Qingsang breathed a sigh of relief. Hu Jinyao stepped back a little and looked at her, whose face was flushed from his kisses. I'll be gone for a week. You must remember to miss me. Who wants to miss you? Stay away from those wild men. Who are you calling a wild man? Su Qingsang's reaction was always a beat slower than his words. More importantly, her legs were really weak now. You still owe me the rest of the kiss. I'll make it up to you when I get back. He had kissed her so many times just now, but she wasn't done yet? Hu Jinyao, can you not be so shameless? Be good. She snuggled up to him softly. She didn't resist or avoid him, which made him very satisfied. He gave her another peck on the lips. I'm leaving. Su Qingsang watched the man come and go. She had no idea what he was here for. His hand subconsciously touched his lips. His warm touch seemed to linger on it. She was surrounded by Hu Jinyao's scent. She seemed to have heard Hu Jinyao say something in her ear when he was about to leave, but she didn't hear what he said. She felt more and more uncomfortable when she realized that she was distracted by Hu Jinyao's kiss. Su Qingsang took a few minutes to recover. She washed her face with cold water and the heat on her face subsided. Chapter 61. The hospital office and the obstetrics and gynecology department did a detailed investigation. Su Qingsang had applied for the attending physician exam right after she graduated as a postgraduate student and passed it. She was now an official attending physician in the hospital. When she wrote prescriptions, there were nurses by her side. Of course she wouldn't make such a low-level mistake. Li Rongrong's accusation was unreasonable, and the previous incident was regarded as a farce by the hospital. It was Zhuo Hongqian who told Su Qingsang that she was fine. He had an operation to perform in the morning and only heard about it after the operation. He immediately went to see his father, Mr. Zhuo. Then he went to look for Vice President Li. He trusted Su Qingsang unconditionally. How could he believe that she would do such a thing? However, by the time he came to find her, the matter had already been resolved. With Hu Jinyao's appearance and the words of the other people in the department, coupled with Li Rongrong's guilty and frightened expression, what else was there not to understand? Zhuo Hongqian didn't know what to feel. He didn't stand up for Su Qingsang right away, but Hu Jinyao did it first. Therefore he was the first person to inform Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang didn't know about Zhuo Hongqian's psychological changes. She believed that the innocent would always be innocent. Even if things got out of hand, she believed that she would be fine. However, Zhuo Hongqian had good intentions, so that day Su Qingsang offered to treat Zhuo Hongqian to a meal. In the middle of the meal, Su Qingsang received a text from Hu Jinyao. Qingsang, I'm here. Are you off duty? Have you eaten? She didn't know when Hu Jinyao had added her on WeChat, but the contact name was Hu Jinyao. She was not used to hearing the word husband out of the blue. Su Qingsang glanced at Zhuo Hongqian, who was sitting opposite her, and quickly recovered her composure. 3 simple words. They were eating. I haven't eaten yet. I'm so hungry. There was also an aggrieved emoticon in the picture. Looking at his expression, Su Qingsang could almost imagine what Hu Jinyao's face would look like if he were in front of her. He would definitely put his arm around her waist and say, Qingsang, I haven't eaten. I'm so hungry. For some reason Su Qingsang felt like laughing. She thought about it and replied, Go eat. I'm in a meeting. It's not over yet, aggrieved. Su Qingsang almost laughed out loud. This person, he's already an adult, but why is he acting like a child? Where are you having a meeting now? How much longer until it ends? The client's company. I wonder how long it will take, helpless. Su Qingsang couldn't bring herself to laugh. Somehow she felt sorry for him. It's quite pitiful that you haven't eaten at this time, right? Bear with it for a while. We'll eat after the meeting. She had decided to study medicine when she was in high school. He had never come into contact with other industries. Being a doctor was hard, but she also knew that Su Qinghui and Li Qinshua didn't seem to have it easy. Hu Jinyao didn't look like a serious person on the surface. It was really hard for him to sit and have meetings all the time. Hu Jinyao paused for a while and then sent another message. I can't take it anymore. It would take a long time. What do you eat? Take a picture for me to satisfy my craving. This person was really something. He would do whatever he wanted. However, she and Zhuo Hongqian had already started eating, and the dishes didn't look as good as when they were first served. While she was still struggling, Hu Jinyao sent another message. Send it quickly. I'm so hungry. If you don't, I'll make you compensate me twice as much when we get home. Behind it was a picture of red lips. Chapter 62. Are you going to post it? If you don't, I'll make you pay me 3 times as much. She could almost feel Hu Jinyao's face through the phone with that smirk on his face. Wasn't he afraid of being fired by the company if he was distracted during the meeting? Su Qingsang felt helpless. Looking at Zhuo Hongqian's curious gaze, she awkwardly took a photo. What? Qingsang, do you like to post something on your WeChat moments before dinner like everyone else? No. Su Qingsang sent the photo to Hu Jinyao without thinking too much about it. Hu Jinyao is on a business trip. He wants to see what I'm eating tonight. Hearing her mention Hu Jinyao, the smile on Zhuo Hongqian's face faded a little, but only for a few seconds. Seeing Su Qingsang's helpless but not unhappy expression, his heart skipped a beat. Why does he keep such a close eye on you? Little sister, are you being controlled by your husband? Su Qingsang blushed. How am I being controlled by my husband? I'm not. Thinking about it, Hu Jinyao didn't seem to care much about her. He just liked to stick to her when she was at home. Thinking about how Hu Jinyao had been intimate with her from time to time these past few days, she couldn't help but blush. Su Qingsang couldn't help but blush a little. She blushed shyly and Zhuo Hongqian felt a little suffocated. He didn't want to talk about it anymore, so he changed the topic. In another city under the night sky, Hu Jinyao was sitting at the head of the table with a circle of people below him. He was listening to Su Qingsang's reply. A few of his confidants saw that Hu Jinyao's expression was almost relaxed. This was very rare. In the past, Hu Jinyao always had a cold face in meetings. There was a rule that said no mobile phones were allowed in meetings. However, no one dared to remind Hu Jinyao about this. After all, they hadn't seen Hu Jinyao look so relaxed for a long time. Hu Jinyao's face froze when he saw the photo Su Qingsang sent. On the table were 4 dishes and a soup that looked quite good. On the top right of the photo was a hand. Although only 2 fingers were shown on the screen, it was still obvious that it belonged to a man. The atmosphere in the conference room suddenly changed. Hu Jinyao tightened his grip on his phone and abruptly slammed it down on the table. Looking at the group of people who were still arguing passionately, he abruptly stood up. The abrupt movement startled everyone. Especially Hu Jinyao's trusted subordinates. They looked at Hu Jinyao together. Hu Jinyao's feet had already moved 2 steps away. Caught off guard by so many people's gazes, he sat down again. His cold gaze swept across the rest of the people present. Where were we? Continue. His voice was light, but there was a sense of pressure in it. The atmosphere became tense again. The discussion heated up again after a few minutes, but Hu Jinyao didn't have the patience to listen to it anymore. It would take a few days to settle things here. His fingers unconsciously tapped on the table a few times. He was still thinking about how to compress his work and get back as soon as possible. On the other end, his personal assistant came over with a phone. The man came over and placed the phone in his hand respectfully. Hu Xiao, there's a call from the other side. Chapter 63. When Su Qingsang entered the banquet hall, there were already a lot of guests inside. She had only met most of them before, so she wasn't familiar with them. Today was Qiu Yanba's birthday. She received a call from Su Qinghui yesterday, asking her to come today. Not only did she want to come, but she also wanted to bring Hu Jinyao with her. However, Hu Jinyao went on a business trip for a week. It had only been 5 days, so he hadn't come back. In fact, in the past few days when Hu Jinyao wasn't there, she simply came to the hospital to work the night shift. It was really strange. Hu Jinyao had only been with her for a few days, but she actually felt uncomfortable when he wasn't there these days. Thinking about how that man always liked to sleep with her in his arms, he said that it was to improve their relationship. If she struggled, he would scare her. He said that if she moved he would do something to her. She was afraid that he would do something to her, so she actually didn't dare to move. His embrace was very warm, so warm that it was burning. Su Qingsang actually wasn't used to it. At first she didn't even dare to move. However, after a few nights she actually gradually got used to it. She could even sleep well in his arms. She had been on duty in the hospital for the past few nights. If it weren't for the Chiu family's banquet today, she would still be in the hospital. From afar she saw Su Qinghui and Li Qinshua's family standing with the Chiu family. Su Qingsang took a deep breath and stepped forward. After greeting her parents, family, and the elders of the Chiu family, she gave them the gift she had prepared in advance. Brother-in-law, happy birthday. She had a lot of private money, but compared to the Chiu family it wasn't much. The gift wasn't outstanding, but it was still presentable. Chiu Yanba took the gift from her hand. Thank you. Qingsang, you're welcome. It's good that you're here. It's my pleasure. Su Qingsang's expression was indifferent. If she really came empty-handed, she was afraid that Su Qinghui and Li Qinshua's expressions would be even worse. Su Peijian looked behind her and made sure that she had come alone. She smiled slightly. Why are you the only one here today? Didn't I ask you to bring brother-in-law? The word brother-in-law was a little emphasized. Su Qingsang glanced at her calmly. He's on a business trip, so he's not at home. What a coincidence. Su Peijian sneered. Didn't you say he lost his job? Why do we have to work overtime? When the word unemployment was mentioned, some of the people who were close to him began to look at each other in dismay. Seriously? The daughter of the Su family actually married an unemployed man? Su Qingsang's expression didn't change. The other people's gazes had nothing to do with her. After all, this group of people had nothing to do with her. You found a job. What company? What do you do? Su Peijian was aggressive. Perhaps he has dealings with our Su family's company. We can also help him and see what opportunities we can offer him. Don't you think so? Su Qingsang didn't like Su Peijian's arrogant attitude. But after so many years she had gotten used to it. Who asked her to be a legitimate daughter of a wealthy family, while she was just an illegitimate daughter? In the past she had never responded, but this time she felt a little uncomfortable because of Su Peijian's altruistic tone. She couldn't help but respond. There's no need. Jinyao was a very thoughtful person. I believe he will do a good job. Even if Hua Jinyao's work was mediocre, Su Qingsang wouldn't disrespect him on such an occasion. What's more, she thought about the scene when he stood up for her in the hospital. And the few times before. A man like him could be considered responsible, right? Chapter 64. Chiu Yanba was surprised to see Su Qingsang's defense of Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang had been living on campus for a long time and moved out. He didn't have much contact with her. When they met, she was always like a shadow. It was the first time she spoke up for another man. Chiu Yanba narrowed his eyes and saw the protective look on Su Qingsang's face. His gaze was meaningful. After Su Qingsang said this, she suddenly remembered that Hua Jinyao hadn't contacted her since he posted the picture of the food. She couldn't tell what she was feeling. Was this person really that busy? Or, you talk big? Since you're so capable then. Su Peijian wanted to say something but was interrupted by Li Qianxue. Okay, Peijian. You haven't greeted Old Master Li yet. Today was Chiu Yanba's birthday. Old Master Chiu was here. Because of him, Li Qinshua's father, Old Master Li, was also here. Old Master Li was old and had a stroke before. He had been recuperating in the countryside and rarely appeared in these social occasions. This time he heard that it was his future grandson-in-law's birthday, so he specially came. Who was the most favored in the Su family? It was definitely not Su Yusin, the son of Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue, but Su Peijian. Li Qianxue, Old Master Li, and Su Qinghui all loved Su Peijian. This also led to Su Peijian's arrogant personality. Su Peijian was beautiful and had a good family background. Almost flawless. If there was anything that was not perfect, it was Su Qingsang, her half-sister, who was born a few days later than her. Su Qingsang was the shame of the Su family. Because of this, Su Peijian and the Su family didn't like Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang knew that she was not liked, so she wouldn't take the initiative to get close to Old Master Li. But she didn't know if she was unlucky today. After Su Peijian and the others went to greet Old Master Li, someone came to find Su Qingsang and asked her to talk. Su Qingsang had seen Old Master Li a few times but not often. After all, her position in the Su family was awkward. The Li family was really one of the top families in Lin City. Old Master Li was very resourceful, but he only had one daughter, Li Qianxue. In his mind, Su Qinghui was not good enough for Li Qianxue. However, since Li Qianxue liked it, he had no choice but to agree. However, she didn't expect Su Qinghui to be so unreliable. Not long after they got married, he had an illegitimate daughter. Lin City's upper-class society laughed at him for nothing. He didn't know what Su Peijian had said, but his aged but spirited face broke into a faint smile. When Su Qingsang, who was approaching, saw this happy and harmonious scene, she restrained her aura a little more than before. "Hello, Old Master Li." She was not qualified to call Old Master Li Grandpa, but that did not affect her attitude. He was neither servile nor overbearing. There was respect, but there was no intimacy. "I heard that you have graduated from graduate school?" Captain Li's expression was slightly cold. He rarely paid attention to the illegitimate daughter brought by his son-in-law. If he hadn't seen it from afar, he would have forgotten that there was such a person in the Su family. Yes. In fact, it had been almost a year since she graduated, and she had even obtained a medical qualification certificate. However, Old Master Li was not in Lin City, so it was not strange that he didn't know. "You are 24 this year, right?" "Yes, Old Master Li, I am 25 this year." Su Qingsang didn't understand what Old Master Li wanted, and her eyes were a little vigilant. Chapter 65. As soon as he said that, everyone looked at Old Master Li. The others were shocked, but Su Qingsang also felt sad and helpless. She knew that when she got married, Old Master Li happened to go to the countryside to recuperate. She was not a proper granddaughter, so Old Master Li did not attend. However, she did not know that these people did not inform Old Master Li. Well, she was not a member of the Li family. Why would she inform Old Master Li? Seeing that she did not speak, Old Master Li frowned. "What? You don't want to?" Although the son of his old friend had a small problem, the benefits were great. The other party agreed to give 5% of the company's shares as a betrothal gift as long as he and the Li family were connected by marriage. "Dad." Li Qianxue seemed to remember that she did not tell Old Master Li about Su Qingsang's marriage. "She is already married." "What?" "Yes, Grandpa." Su Peijian did not expect that Grandpa would want to introduce someone to Su Qingsang. "She is already married. Half a month ago." Old Master Li's face darkened. "Why didn't anyone tell me about such a big thing?" Su Qinghui cheated almost as soon as they got married, which made him very unhappy. After Su Qingsang was born, he was very angry. He even wanted Su Qinghui to send Su Qingsang to the orphanage. Su Qinghui came to beg him and repeatedly promised that he would never let Su Qingsang threaten Su Peijian's position. He reluctantly agreed to raise such an unpresentable illegitimate daughter in the Su family. Su Peijian was engaged to Qiu Yanba. The two families were well matched and they were childhood sweethearts. Old Master Li had thought about it for a long time. An illegitimate daughter like Su Qingsang had been raised by the Su family for so long, so he had to give something back. It was not that he was selfish and heartless. His only daughter married Su Qinghui, but he did not know how to cherish her and had such a big illegitimate daughter. In this case, he did not need to be too polite to Su Qinghui. Moreover, the family he chose was good in all aspects. Except for that small problem, it could be said that Su Qingsang had a higher social status. "Which family is the kid from?" Su Qingsang kept her head down and treated herself as an outsider. And Su Peijian very enthusiastically helped her introduce the situation to Old Master Li. Old Master Li did not say anything and no one knew what he meant. "Oh. Which respectable family in Lin City had such a surname?" Old Master Li turned to Li Qianxue. Li Qianxue glanced at her nominal daughter, then quickly turned her eyes to Old Master Li. "Dad, it is rare for you to come. There are so many people and you must be tired." Su Master Li. She didn't like Su Qingsang, but she would never lower herself to make things difficult for an illegitimate daughter. As for Su Peijian, sometimes she couldn't take it anymore and liked to talk, so she just let her be. "Qingsang, since you're already married, you should give up on your side. Our Li clan doesn't need to rely on marriage to achieve any goals anyway." The Li family and the Qiu family were marrying each other because they were well matched in terms of social status. Su and Su Li Qiu Su liked Su. As for Su Qingsang, as long as she wasn't a threat to Su Peijian, she naturally wouldn't make things difficult for her. If she hadn't agreed, Su Qingsang wouldn't have been able to get the things that Su Qinghui had given her. Old Master Li was about to go back to rest. But there was a small noise at the door. Chapter 66. Su Qingsang's back was to the door, so she didn't see it. She didn't expect that Old Master Li would want to use her for a marriage alliance. For a moment she felt complicated and stood there motionlessly. But old Master Li saw it. That young man seemed familiar. Where had he seen him before? Old Master Chiu, who was talking to someone not far away, also saw it. He was thinner than old Master Li, but he was also in good spirits. He came over and stood next to old Master Chiu. Who is that young man? He looks familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen him. Su Qingsang didn't see him until he came closer. Her eyes widened. Why did this person suddenly come? Didn't he say he was going on a business trip for a week? Li Qianxue, Su Qinghui and Su Peijian all looked at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao walked straight to Su Qingsang as if he didn't see them. He reached out and hugged her tightly. Honey, I'm back. In public, Su Qingsang was caught off guard by Hua Jinyao's hug. She was stunned. She felt more and more uncomfortable when she met the eyes of the Su family, the Li family and the Chiu family. I missed you so much. Hua Jinyao kissed Su Qingsang's face as he spoke. Did you miss me? She didn't. No, he didn't miss her. He hadn't called or texted her for so many days. How could he say he missed her? Who would believe that? You didn't miss me? Then I'm going to be sad. Hua Jinyao held his heart with one hand and looked hurt. Qingsang, I'm so sad that you didn't miss me. Stop it. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone was staring at them. No matter how quiet he was, they heard him. Su Qingsang tugged at his arm. There are elders here. He gave her the same. Hua Jinyao seemed to see everyone else in the room now. However, he didn't look embarrassed at all. He waved to them and said, Sorry. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. I believe you all understand, right? The corner of Li Qianshua's mouth twitched. Su Qinghui also looked strange. Why was this person so unreliable? Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang called him in a low voice and then introduced him. Hua Jinyao greeted the elders very generously. Hello, old Master Li. Hello, old Master Chiu. I'm Hua Jinyao. After a round of greetings, he took out a small box from his pocket. I can tell that today is Boss Chow's birthday. Congratulations. Thank you. Chiu Yanba took the gift from her hand. You're very kind. Old Master Chiu looked at this man with an extraordinary temperament. He could tell at a glance that he was not someone to be trifled with, and then looked at Chiu Yanba. The man Su Qingsang was looking for was him? Why did he think he looked familiar? Oh. With a flash of inspiration in his mind, old Master Chiu seemed to have thought of it. Mr. Hua looks familiar to me. What's your relationship with the Hua family in Rong City? When he mentioned the Hua family in Rong City, old Master Li also remembered. Both of them looked at Hua Jinyao. Not only them, but even Su Qingsang was getting nervous. Isn't Hua Jinyao an ordinary person? How could it be related to the Hua family in Rong City? Even with her status, she had heard of such an illustrious family in Lin City. Li Qianxue and Su Qinghui also looked at him. The Hua family in Rong City? How could it be? Hua Jinyao raised his eyebrows and looked at the group of people staring at him as if he was a monkey. His eyes were half closed, but his expression was puzzled. Chapter 67. Su Qingsang wasn't surprised by his answer. The Hua family in Rong City was a family that even the Li family couldn't compare to. The descendants of the Hua family had their own people in the military, politics, and business. The current head of the Hua family, Hua Mingguang, did not participate in politics, but he was the leader of the Hua family. If Hua Jinyao really had something to do with the Hua family in Rong City, why would he marry her? After all, if he was a descendant of the Hua family, what kind of woman couldn't he have? How could this be? Old Master Li had worked with the Hua family in Rong City. Why did he feel that the head of the Hua family looked somewhat similar to Hua Jinyao in front of him? Old Master Li and Old Master Chiu looked at each other. Both of them were doubtful. Hua Jinyao didn't seem to notice their gazes. He just stared at Su Qingsang and said, Honey, I'm so hungry. Su Qingsang felt goosebumps all over her body again. It's not a banquet today? The banquet should have started, right? Hua Jinyao glanced at Chiu Yanba as he spoke. Or did Mr. Chiu not prepare our food? Chiu Yanba almost couldn't hold it in anymore. How could that be? The banquet is about to start. This way, please. Honey. Hua Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulder and said, I'm really hungry. You don't know how terrible the food on the plane is, so I rushed here as soon as I got off the plane. Actually, it was just Chiu Yanba's birthday that he wasn't here. It's okay. How can I not come when there's good food? Hua Jinyao purposely whispered into Su Qingsang's ear, Besides, I gave you a gift. That gift cost me half a month's salary. Su Qingsang didn't hear what he said clearly. She only felt his sudden approach, and his hot breath was right next to her ear. She shrunk her neck awkwardly, which made Hu Jiniao move closer to her. I'm really hungry. He didn't care about what he said, but the Chiu clan, Li clan, and Su clan behind him all heard it. How was this behaving like a descendant of the Hua clan? Old Master Li let out a sigh of relief. If Su Qingseng was really connected to the Hua family, then he would have to reevaluate his nominal granddaughter. Let's go. The banquet began. This way, please. Old Master Chiu led Old Master Li's family to the seat of honor with his son and daughter. She didn't get rid of Hu Jiniao's hand on her shoulder until she sat down. This table was not the main table, so there was no one there. However, she knew all the people sitting next to her. Tseng Weiqiang, Luo Haonan's sister, Luo Meishan. Song Yangjia and his sister Song Yoha. Chang Ningning, her brother Chang Qiuhai, and Wu Ran. This group of people were all friends with Chiu Yanba. Su Qingseng hadn't attended their gatherings, but she knew about their circle. Wu Jiniao really knew how to pick a seat. He had picked such a good seat to sit in. However, what happened next was very strange. When the banquet started, Hu Jiniao and Su Qingseng sat on the same side, but no one sat on the same side. Even though there were a few empty seats on the table, there was not a single person there. Su Qingseng unintentionally looked back and found Luo Haonan's smug look. She sighed in her heart. If she remembered correctly, Luo Haonan, who came from a good family, also liked Su Peixian. She turned her face to look at Hu Jiniao. He was not at all unaccustomed to the fact that no one sat on this seat. Instead, he looked at her with a strange expression. Chapter 68. The dishes began to be served. Hu Jiniao took her bowl, scooped a bowl of soup for her and placed it in front of her. Come have some soup. You have to eat more. We gave you a gift. Su Qingseng finally had a smile on her face. She didn't know what to do with this person. Stop fooling around. If others knew, they would think that he came from a slum. Really? Hu Jiniao looked serious. Let me ask you, did you also give a gift just now? Yes. Look, you gave a gift and so did I. Wouldn't it be a loss if we don't eat more? Su Qingseng looked at Hu Jiniao and couldn't help but laugh. She really couldn't do anything about him. Why was this person so funny? Okay, let's eat more. There was no one else at this table anyway. The two of them didn't care about their image. Although they didn't wolf down the food, they were definitely not gentle. Old Master Li, who was sitting at the head table, glanced at them from afar and finally felt relieved. He didn't want to be enemies with the Hua family. If possible, he had to be on good terms. It seemed that Hu Jiniao really didn't have anything to do with the Hua family. This was good. As for Su Qingseng, since she was married, there was nothing to guard against Su Peixian, so let her be. The Li family wasn't such a harsh family. Su Qingseng didn't know what others were thinking. With so many people looking at her as if she were a monster, under Hu Jiniao's encouragement, she really ate a little more than usual. When she walked out of the hotel, she touched her stomach and looked at Hu Jiniao with some suspicion. It's all your fault. What happened to me? I ate too much. If it weren't for him picking up food for her and persuading her to eat back, she wouldn't have been so stubborn. How could she be so stubborn? Really? Hu Jiniao stopped and suddenly reached out to touch her lower abdomen. Let me help you rub it. Don't. Su Qingseng couldn't stop him. Hu Jiniao's hand had already reached out. His palm was wide and warm. It was hot now. Through a thin layer of clothes, Su Qingseng could clearly feel the feeling of his hand on her abdomen. Blushing, she took a step back uncomfortably. Stop it. Now that the banquet was over, many people were walking out. Hu Jiniao held her hand. What did I do? Didn't you say that you were too full? Hu Jiniao. It's okay, honey. Let's go for a walk. It'll help with digestion. No. This place was a little far from her apartment. She still had to get her car and hurry home. I still have to work tomorrow. There's no hurry. Hu Jiniao thought for a moment and suddenly exclaimed. By the way, there's a park not far from here. It's still early. Let's go there for a walk, then come back and drive. Su Qingseng really didn't want to go. She had always been a homebody. No. Afraid that he would insist on taking her for a walk in the park, she tried to change the topic. Aren't you tired? Go back and rest early. Honey, are you worried about me? Hu Jiniao hugged her without waiting for her answer. Honey, you're worried about me. You're the best. I'm the one. Who cares about him? Su Qingseng did not want to admit it. However, Hu Jiniao didn't know how to keep a low profile at all. He picked her up and kissed her hard on the lips. Su Qingseng could already see the eyes of the people around her. She blushed for a moment. Put me down. My wife is so nice. Hu Jinyao kissed her face again. Honey, I'm not tired. I'm really not tired. I still have the strength to walk with you. After thinking for a moment, he added eagerly, not to mention a walk. Even if you want me to fight with you for 7 rounds, I can still cooperate. Really? Chapter 69. Hu Jinyao. Couldn't this person be more serious? What's wrong with me? Hu Jinyao looked at her innocently. I said I can still play 7 rounds with you. What are you thinking about? Su Qingsang glared at him, turned around and left. Look at you. Why are you angry? You can tell me if you don't know how to play chess. Hu Jinyao seemed to be addicted to teasing her. Go away. He clearly remembered the look in his eyes and what he meant just now. That was, Hu Jinyao followed behind her to hold her hand. She broke free and he pulled her again. Finally, he held her hand and moved closer to her ear. Are you thinking about something embarrassing? Don't worry. I can satisfy you too. Hu Jinyao. Su Qingsang was so angry that she wanted to pull her hand out again. Hu Jinyao wasn't afraid. He held her hand tightly. Really? Honey, you have to believe me. I've always been very strong. You're still talking about it. Why don't you try it tonight? Su Qingsang took Hu Jinyao's words seriously. After taking a shower, she stood at the door hesitantly. Hu Jinyao had already taken a shower and was lying on the bed playing with his phone. Su Qingsang knew that this person wasn't serious. When she went up to him and found out that he was playing Xiaopao, she was even more speechless. You, don't be noisy. I only have 2 ice cubes left to pass. Su Qingsang opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. She even thought that this man couldn't be a member of the Hua family. Such a man actually liked to play such a game. Seriously, what are you looking at? Hu Jinyao passed the game. When he went to the next level, he saw Su Qingsang's shocked face. Don't underestimate this. The next levels are very difficult. Su Qingsang's lips moved. She was a little speechless. You don't believe me? Try it. Hu Jinyao put the phone in Su Qingsang's hand as he spoke. Su Qingsang didn't have time to play games. She had been busy with her studies for the past few years. She knew about Xiaopao because a pregnant woman in the ward liked it. Hu Jinyao had already passed more than 1,000 levels. How free was he? She took the phone and played with it for a while, then realized that it was really not easy. At the end of the round, she still had more than half of the ice left. It was very awkward. Haha, I told you it wasn't easy, right? Hu Jinyao didn't take his phone back as he spoke. Instead, he put his arms around her waist. His other hand lightly touched the screen. Come, I'll teach you. She wanted to return the phone to him. However, he grabbed her hand and circled her in his arms to play the game. Here, look here. He was too close. Behind her was his warm, almost boiling chest, and to her side was his strong arms. Feeling his breath on her neck, Su Qingsang felt very uncomfortable. She gently twisted her body, trying to get him to let go of her. Don't move. Look, we're about to pass. His hot breath brushed against her cheeks, making her feel more and more uncomfortable. She couldn't help but turn her face away. However, she forgot that he was holding her in his arms. As soon as she turned around, his lips fell on hers. Su Qingsang froze for a moment and stared at Hu Jinyao. Her palm fell onto the quilt. Chapter 70. The air seemed to start to become hot. The cold air from the air conditioner couldn't relieve the heat in Su Qingsang's heart at all. She watched as Hu Jinyao deepened the kiss, watched as he laid her body flat, watched as his hand began to move downwards. Her consciousness blurred for a moment, and her rationality told her that this was wrong. She couldn't let Hu Jinyao do this. But emotionally she felt as if it was supposed to be like this. She was his wife now. He was her husband. Wasn't it right and proper for him to want to do something to her? She could feel his excitement, and her consciousness began to wander. Yes, he was her husband. Su Qingsang thought of this and didn't resist, but she didn't go further. Okay, she just felt a little hot. It was so hot that she couldn't stand it and wanted to get rid of it. All of Hu Jinyao's movements suddenly stopped. He buried his face in her neck and panted heavily. Su Qingsang didn't dare to move. She didn't understand what was wrong with him. Can I? He asked her. His voice was a little hoarse. But when she heard it, she felt that it was extremely sexy. She couldn't help but turn her face to look at him. She could feel that he couldn't help it anymore. But at this time he still stopped to ask her what she wanted. She suddenly felt a little touched. This man was actually quite good to her. He could just ignore her wishes. Given the current situation, could she still resist? But he asked himself. She was a little touched, but she couldn't say a word. Hua Jinyao's breathing became heavier. He gently bit her chin and said, "Can I?" Su Qingsang's face was so hot that she couldn't speak. When she met Hua Jinyao's eyes, which were as bright as stars, her brain heated up. She leaned over and bit his lower jaw lightly as well. This ignited the fire. Hua Jinyao gritted his teeth, propped up his body and looked at Su Qingsang. "You asked for this." He sounded like he was gnashing his teeth. Su Qingsang was a little scared. She instinctively wanted to dodge to the side, but it was already too late. Hua, the rest of her words were swallowed. Everything that happened next was not up to her to decide. Su Qingsang had never felt that the night was so long. It was so long that she wished it could end immediately. She felt as if she was dead but also as if she was still alive. She didn't drink at the banquet, so how could she be drunk now? It was really the feeling of being drunk, sometimes rising, sometimes falling. He was dizzy and in a trance. This feeling was something she had never experienced before. Eventually, her consciousness became hazy and she gradually fell asleep. As for what Hua Jinyao did after that, she seemed to have a feeling about it, but she didn't have time to object. When Su Qingsang opened her eyes, her first thought was that she was late. Her second reaction was to remember that it was her turn to rest today. The sudden soreness in her body woke her up instantly. All the memories from yesterday had become exceptionally clear now. "Good morning, wife." The sudden voice made her turn her head and see Hua Jinyao's enlarged face in front of her. He supported his head with one hand and looked at her with a smile. Su Qingsang suddenly blushed. She smacked him. "Honey, I'm so sorry." "Good morning." Morning. Su Qingsang suddenly stuttered. She shrank her body and realized that she was in a state where she was naked. She wanted to wrap herself in the quilt. She thought so and did so. However, the moment she wrapped herself into a cocoon, Hua Jinyao hugged her into his arms. Chapter 71. Su Qingsang looked like a chrysalis, unable to move under Hua Jinyao's body. Unfortunately, she was the one who had trapped herself in a cocoon of her own making. There would be only one head sticking out. It was very hot. Even with the air conditioner, Su Qingsang couldn't stand it. After a while, she begged for mercy. Get up. She was so hot that she was sweating. Hua Jinyao just looked at her and didn't move. He just acted like a rascal. "I'm not getting up. You didn't even call me husband." "What? I called you wife the whole night last night, but you didn't call me husband." Hua Jinyao's voice was filled with grievance and accusation. "Stop it. Get out of the way." She was really hot. And hungry. Fortunately, she didn't have to go to work today. Otherwise she would definitely be late. "No, I won't. If you call me husband, I'll let you go." When Hua Jinyao became a rascal, Su Qingsang definitely couldn't resist him. "Hua Jinyao, you bit me yesterday." This sound was even more aggrieved. Hua Jinyao moved his shoulder in front of her to let her see his masterpiece. "Tell me, how are you going to make it up to me?" There were several bite marks on Hua Jinyao's shoulder. Su Qingsang was angry, embarrassed, and ashamed. She did remember that she bit him last night when she was in pain. It seemed more than one bite. At first, it was pain and then it was tiredness. She wanted to beg him for mercy several times and ask him to let her go, but this guy just refused. "I said that we would fight for 7 rounds. It's still early." How could she really let him do it 7 times? She would definitely die in his hands then. Later, begging for mercy didn't work. She was exhausted and angry, so she could only bite him. But she didn't expect the mark to be so deep. There was even one on her neck. If the neckline of her clothes was a little bigger, she was afraid that people would see it. Su Qingsang blushed and didn't look at Hua Jinyao. "Get out of the way. You make it up to me first." Hua Jinyao slightly narrowed his eyes as if he was calculating. "Look, you owed me many times before. Plus yesterday, how much do you think you owe me? How could there be such a rascal?" "Such a rascal?" Su Qingsang was angry. "Didn't I pay you back yesterday?" "What do you mean?" "Yesterday you..." Even though Su Qingsang was an obstetrician and could remain extremely calm in front of patients, she was choked and speechless. "What about me yesterday?" Hua Jinyao smirked. Su Qingsang gritted her teeth. "Are you going to get up or not?" "Rise." Hua Jinyao stepped back as he spoke. Just as Su Qingsang was about to pull the quilt away, he took the opportunity to get under the covers. "Jinyao? I hate to be in debt. Since you owe me, you should pay me back quickly." Su Qingsang hadn't realized what he was talking about. She foolishly followed his words and said, I did it yesterday." "Yes, you did. I haven't. Hua Jinyao leaned against her. I paid you back for yesterday and today. Today's and tomorrow's. I don't want you to return it. What kind of nonsense was this? Why did he bring her in? I think it's still. With these 3 words, Hua Jinyao sealed his lips with a kiss. Su Qingsang couldn't fight back. She turned into fine sand on the beach, was swept up by the waves and was washed ashore. Huge waves surged, rolling up boundless waves and bringing up countless fine sand. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao fooled around until it was almost noon. She was starving and had no strength. Hua Jinyao was also aware of what he had done, so he called someone to deliver food. Su Qingsang ate some food and took a nap. She didn't wake up until it was almost evening. Feeling a little better, she was thinking about whether she should sleep for a while, only to find that Hua Jinyao was not there. She slightly frowned and looked at the empty room. She was momentarily disappointed. She thought that he would be guarding her. Chapter 72. Hua Jinyao was completely different from his usual carefree self. Su Qingsang was a little curious. She even forgot about the discomfort in her body and walked towards the balcony. Hua Jinyao turned his face sideways and didn't see her approach. The news on the other end of the phone made his face turn ugly. His face was cold and his voice was lower than usual. There's no room for negotiation. If they didn't agree, then he would change to another one. We can see who will be at a disadvantage. Don't bring her up to pressure me. If you want to follow her, I don't mind. After saying this, the glass door was pulled open. Su Qingsang walked out. Hua Jinyao was stunned. His fingers reacted first and hung up the phone. You're up? Yes. Su Qingsang's voice was a little hoarse when she spoke. Realizing the reason, she felt uncomfortable. Were you calling? She didn't want to think about the previous scene, nor did she want to think about what this guy had done to her. Su Qingsang changed the subject. Nothing, just someone from the company. Someone from the company? Why do you look so angry? She didn't hear it clearly, but she could tell from her expression. It's okay. Hua Jinyao said, there's something wrong with the contract we signed a few days ago. Don't worry. I can handle it. Su Qingsang didn't know much about these things, so she didn't ask. As long as it can be solved. She wanted to say that he could tell her if he needed any help, but she remembered that there was nothing she could do to help. He didn't say anything else. Hua Jinyao put the phone in his pocket, stepped forward and put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist. You care about me? Su Qingsang's waist was still soft. Being hugged by him made her feel like she couldn't even stand straight. Let go. You care about me? Seeing that she didn't answer, Hua Jinyao wasn't disappointed. Instead, he kissed her on the cheek and said, My wife is so nice. You care about me so much. I'm really touched. 3 black lines appeared on Su Qingsang's forehead. Could this guy not be so good at talking to himself? I didn't. Looks like you're very satisfied with my efforts yesterday. They all know that they care about me. I'm so touched. Hua Jinyao's ability to talk to himself had once again refreshed Su Qingsang's understanding of him. How thick was this person's skin? How was she concerned about him? Also, what did he mean by she was very satisfied with his efforts yesterday? Go away, I'm not satisfied. Her waist was about to break. What was there for her to be satisfied about? You're not satisfied? Hua Jinyao turned to look at her with a strange expression on his face. Let's do it again. Don't worry. I promise you'll be satisfied this time. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang had had enough. She had never met anyone as shameless as this guy. Are you going to move or not? Let. Hua Jinyao knew when to stop. Seeing that Su Qingsang didn't seem to be in a good mood, he touched his nose and walked up to her. Honey, are you hungry? You haven't eaten anything all day. What do you want to eat? It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned it. Now that he did, Su Qingsang wanted to kill him. Who was responsible for her not eating for a day? Hua Jinyao shrank his neck when she glanced at him coldly. It's late. Should I order takeout now? Su Qingsang didn't respond. She didn't have the energy to go out to eat anyway. When they were outside, the two of them sat on the sofa together. Hua Jinyao held her in his arms and rested his chin on her shoulder. Su Qingsang felt uncomfortable. She couldn't stand it and wanted to hide. Don't touch me. Hua Jinyao looked innocent. I didn't touch you. He moved his mouth and head, not his hands and feet. Su Qingsang gritted her teeth and took a deep breath. She told herself not to argue with a rascal. Chapter 73. Hua Jinyao tightened his grip on her waist. He was behind her, so she couldn't see his expression. Our company? That's right. What were they doing on a business trip for so many days? You said the contract has been negotiated. What is it about? Su Qingsang didn't come back to her senses until she said that. She turned to look at Huo Jinyao. Since she was his other half, she should at least know what he did outside, right? Huo Jinyao hugged her tightly and kissed her on the cheek. Aren't you worried about me? They're starting to care about my work. Huo Jinyao, don't change the subject. Su Qingsang began to feel that something was wrong. Don't change the subject. She really didn't care about him. She just wanted to clarify things. In the future she would have to deal with the Li family, the Su family, and even some related people. She didn't want to be ignorant. As long as he had a proper job, as long as the things he did were not shameful, she didn't mind at all. Well, Huo Jinyao touched his nose and said, it's not that I don't want to tell you. It's just that I'm new here and the company I work for is also a small one. So, it's fine if it's a small company. What does it do? It's a trading company. Huo Jinyao nodded. A very small trading company. There are only a few people including me. That's why I'm going with the boss for that business last time. Su Qingsang stared into his eyes as if she was trying to confirm his words. Huo Jinyao's eyes were dark and bright. At that moment she could clearly see her own reflection in them. The words that Su Qingsang wanted to say stopped there. For a moment she forgot what she wanted to say. Her eyes were still filled with suspicion. Huo Jinyao cleared his throat and seemed a little uncomfortable. It's really a very small trading company. It's too small for me to tell you. I'm fine. When Su Qingsang came back to her senses, she realized that she was staring at Huo Jinyao in a daze, which was not a good sign. It doesn't matter if the company is small. Do it well. Everyone starts from a young age. Honey, you're the best. As Huo Jinyao spoke, he kissed her on the cheek again. Don't worry. I'll definitely work hard. Su Qingsang looked at the look on his face that was begging for praise, and 3 black lines appeared on her forehead again. The next day was Sunday. Su Qingsang was woken up by Huo Jinyao early in the morning. She was so sleepy that she broke free from Huo Jinyao's hand and lay back down. Stop it. I'm so sleepy. This fellow was not enough to mess with her for one night, so he messed with her for half the night yesterday. She was sleepy and didn't want to get up. The weather is good today. Let's go out and play. Huo Jinyao was in high spirits. He grabbed Su Qingsang's hand and pulled her back. Su Qingsang was furious. Huo Jinyao, have you had enough? She had been working the night shift last week and hadn't had a good rest. Su Qingsang was exasperated. Get out of here. Huo Jinyao didn't expect Su Qingsang to be so angry when she woke up. He was momentarily stunned. Su Qingsang ignored him, turned over and went back to sleep. Huo Jinyao stared at her back for a while, then finally walked out quietly. She fell into a much deeper sleep than before. When she woke up, she felt someone holding her hand. Su Qingsang instinctively wanted to pull her hand back, but she felt something strange in her hand. Chapter 74. She didn't know when a diamond ring had appeared on her hand. Huo Jinyao thought that the ring she had randomly picked out was ugly, so he had thrown it into a corner after the incident. And now he was holding her hand with one hand, and slipping the ring on her finger with the other. You're awake. Huo Jinyao looked like he was asking for credit. Su Qingsang blinked and looked at the diamond ring. She couldn't come back to her senses for a moment. The ring looked like it was at least 5 carats, right? The pink diamond was cut into the shape of a heart. The design was simple and elegant, and it shone brightly in the room. Su Qingsang blinked again and asked, Did you buy it? Do you like it? Huo Jinyao asked again. Su Qingsang sat up, raised her hand and looked at it for a long time. She still couldn't believe it. Did you buy it? Aha. Huo Jinyao's face was full of flattery. How much did it cost? Although she was the illegitimate daughter of the Su family, she wasn't ignorant. Not much. Only a few tens of millions. However, he felt that it was still a little small. It wasn't the right time to say that. How much is not much? Just a few thousand. Huo Jinyao looked at Su Qingsang and suddenly held her hand. You don't think it's real, do you? Isn't it? The quality of this diamond looked so good. Could it be fake? Of course not. Huo Jinyao grinned, showing his white teeth. It's fake. Fake. Yes. Huo Jinyao sounded a little guilty when he said that. It only cost a few thousand. A few thousand? Su Qingsang raised her hand and looked at the diamond ring. She couldn't believe that it was only a few thousand. Honey. Huo Jinyao put his arm around her waist. Although it only cost a few thousand, it took me a long time to pick it out. After all, there aren't many rings that are so realistic and beautiful. Indeed. It was so fake that it looked like the real one. No wonder so many people couldn't tell the difference. It's only a few thousand. But it still cost me half a month's salary. Huo Jingyao moved his face closer to hers. Honey, you won't mind that I bought you a fake ring, will you? Why would I? Su Qingsang didn't like jewelry very much. I can't wear this often. I need to go to work. When entering the operating room, he was not allowed to wear any jewelry. I know. But I want you to wear it normally. Only by wearing it all the time could those ignorant people see clearly that she was taken. All right. I got it. As she spoke, Su Qingsang was about to take off the ring, but Huo Jingyao quickly held her hand. What are you doing? Nothing. Su Qingsang looked at him with confusion. I have to do the laundry and tidy up the room later. Take it off first. No need. Huo Jingyao smiled and said, Your hands are so beautiful. How could I let you clean up the room? I've already called the hourly worker, she'll be here soon. Su Qingsang looked at him. She had no problem with hiring part-time workers. When she was busy, she didn't have time to take care of the cleanliness of the house. However, Huo Jinyao's arrangement surprised her. Normally this guy had just found a job. Even if he didn't lack money, shouldn't he be frugal? But he bought a gift for Qiu Yanba and a diamond ring for her as a gift when he returned home last time. That would make him stop her when she said she wanted to do something. Although he was good to her, why did she feel that something was wrong? All right, you're awake now. Let's go eat. Huo Jinyao reached out to pull her up. Su Qingsang looked at his hands. His slender fingers had distinct joints. They were a pair of very beautiful hands. She looked at Huo Jinyao, who didn't seem to know how to do housework. Thinking about everything that had happened since the first day she met him, Su Qingsang began to feel curious for the first time. Chapter 75. Huo Jinyao noticed Su Qingsang's hesitation after taking 2 steps. He turned to look at her and asked, What's wrong? Su Qingsang shook her head gently and insisted on taking off the ring. Huo Jinyao helped her put it back on again. What's wrong? You don't like it? No. Su Qingsang looked at Huo Jinyao's face and seemed to be thinking about what to say. I think it's too much. Why did you buy such a big diamond ring? Didn't you think about how ostentatious it is? Whether the ring was real or fake, it was too ostentatious to wear. Huo Jinyao scratched his head and said, Don't you women like the bigger the ring, the better? The brighter the diamond, the better? It was not easy to find such a big pink diamond with such a good color. She didn't like it at all? Who said that? Su Qingsang didn't want to argue with him. Okay. I've received your kind intentions. I'd better put this away. It's really not suitable. Huo Jinyao watched Su Qingsang put the ring, which he had specially ordered in Paris for more than 80 million yuan, into the drawer of the dressing table. The corners of his mouth twitched. Honey? Okay. Let's go eat. Honey? Huo Jinyao grabbed her hand and the grievance on his face became more obvious. You really don't dislike me for buying a fake one? Su Qingsang's forehead twitched. Forget it. She was crazy to think that this man had another identity. In her eyes, Huo Jinyao was like a big golden retriever. Really isn't. Huo Jinyao still seemed unhappy. Su Qingsang couldn't bear to see him like this, so she glared at him and left the room. After dinner, Huo Jinyao took Su Qingsang out to go shopping. Su Qingsang didn't want to move. You can either go for a walk with me or wear that ring. Huo Jinyao was being shameless. Su Qingsang was so angry that she almost laughed. Who would do that? I told you your ring is too big. It's too ostentatious to wear it. Even if it was fake, it was still very eye-catching, okay? Then come for a walk with me. Huo Jinyao held her hand and said, We've been married for so long, but we haven't taken a walk together yet. The corners of Su Qingsang's mouth twitched, and she reluctantly let Huo Jinyao drag her into the room. Her apartment was quite close to the city center. At this time, the two of them had finished eating and were strolling hand in hand on the road near the neighborhood. Around the left corner was a park, and around the right corner was a large shopping mall. Su Qingsang had moved here for a long time, but she had never walked around the area. Now that Huo Jinyao was holding her hand to go shopping, she was a little interested. Qingsang, this is a nice dress. Go ahead and try it. When the two of them walked past the window of a boutique, Huo Jinyao stopped and pointed at a dress in the shop. Now I have clothes. She was not particular about food and clothing. Try it on. Huo Jinyao pulled her in. I think it will look good on you. Su Qingsang glanced at the logo on the door, then glanced at Huo Jinyao. Come. She couldn't resist his enthusiasm, so she followed him into the room to try on the clothes. It was a black lace dress. Su Qingsang was gentle and beautiful, so she really didn't think such a sexy dress was suitable for her. But Hu Jingyao insisted, so she had to try it on. Hu Jingyao was waiting outside. He stood up when he saw her come out. The black dress was mysterious and the lace was sexy. The combination of the two made Su Qingsang look completely different from before. "I'll take this one." Hu Jingyao looked at her with admiration. Su Qingsang turned around uncomfortably and looked at Hu Jingyao in the mirror. "Does it really look good?" The dress was too tight and she was not used to it. "Very good." The shop assistant agreed with Hu Jinyao's words. He took out another dress and handed it to her. "Try this one on too." "I don't think that's necessary." The dress was bright red. Su Qingsang never liked to wear too colorful clothes. "Try it on. It's free anyway." Chapter 76. Noticing that Su Qingsang was looking at him, he shoved the dress into her hands. "I'm going to take a call. Go try it on." He looked a little strange, but Su Qingsang didn't think too much about it. She took the dress and went into the fitting room. When she came out, Hu Jinyao had already gone outside to make a call. She rarely wore bright red, especially when she worked in a hospital. Her gaze landed on a white dress that was tailored elegantly. She reached out her hand to take it. At the same time, her other hand touched the dress. Su Qingsang was stunned. The person was looking at her too. "Su Qingsang?" The disdainful voice was full of disdain. The person standing in front of her was Qiu Yanba's sister, Qiu Junjiu. Su Qingsang didn't see Qiu Junjiu at the Qiu family's banquet the day before yesterday. She heard that she was abroad. Was she back now? There was another woman standing next to Qiu Junjiu. She was quite pretty with delicate makeup. She didn't seem to be interested in the scene in front of her. "Xianyao, what do you think of this dress?" Qiu Junjiu wanted to take the dress off, only to find that Su Qingsang's hand was still on it. She glanced at her. "What? Aren't you going to let go?" She wanted to take the dress, but Su Qingsang didn't let go. "Sorry, I saw it first." "Su Qingsang." Qiu Junjiu snorted. "What? Are you brave now? You dare to go against me?" "Miss Qiu, be reasonable. I saw this dress first. It was just a dress. She didn't really want it." But she really didn't like Qiu Junjiu's tone and attitude. "So what? Can you afford it?" Qiu Junjiu thought for a moment and suddenly laughed. "I heard you got married. Which family in Lin City are you from? The Zheng family? The Luo family? Or the Song family or the Chang family?" As a person, he had to be clear about his own status. "What? Do you think you're the crown prince just because you wear the dragon robe?" Su Qingsang had gotten used to the contempt in her words over the years. She had no intention of paying attention. He Xianyao, who was behind Qiu Junjiu, asked, "Junjiu, who is she?" "Let me introduce you. Isn't my brother engaged to the eldest daughter of the Su family, Su Peijian? She is the illegitimate daughter of the Su family, Su Qingsang." When she mentioned illegitimate daughter, she deliberately raised her voice, as if she was afraid that others would not know. Su Qingsang had heard this kind of ridicule many times before. At this moment, he didn't feel anything when he heard it. "What? Aren't you going to let go?" Qiu Junjiu arrogantly asked Su Qingsang to let go of her hand. The shop assistants who were watching this scene did not dare to say a word. Su Qingsang looked at Qiu Junjiu for a while and was about to withdraw her hand. Another big hand picked up the dress and put it in Su Qingsang's hand. "Go try on the clothes." Su Qingsang looked at Hu Jinyao. His face was calm, as if he hadn't heard the words illegitimate daughter. "Who are you?" Qiu Junjiu didn't know Hu Jinyao. She didn't look happy that the clothes she had her eyes on had been snatched away. Hu Jinyao ignored her and turned to look at the shop assistant behind him. "I thought a shop like yours should be very classy. Why do you even let barking dogs in?" Su Qingsang almost choked on her own saliva. Qiu Junjiu took a step forward, her chest heaving with anger. "Who are you? Who are you calling a dog?" Chapter 77. Su Qingsang was speechless. She had already seen Hu Jinyao's fighting ability. His mouth was so sharp that she couldn't even handle it sometimes. It felt good to see Qiu Junjiu's flustered and exasperated look. She realized that she seemed to have changed. "Go try on the clothes." Hu Jinyao completely ignored the furious Qiu Junjiu. "Wrap them up if you like them." "Who are you?" It was the first time Qiu Junjiu had encountered such a situation. She was furious. "Who are you? What does it have to do with you?" What does it have to do with me? You are barking at my wife. What if you scare her? Su Qingsang wanted to laugh again because of the word barking. Looking at Qiu Junjio's almost twisted face, she hid her smile by lowering her head. If Qiu Junjio saw her laughing at her, she was afraid that she would be in big trouble. She really didn't want to confront her for the time being. Your wife. Qiu Junjio didn't think that she couldn't see her laughing at her with her head lowered. Qiu Junjio heard that Su Qingsang was married, but she didn't expect her to marry such an outstanding man. How could an illegitimate daughter like Su Qingsang find such an outstanding man? He must be a gigolo. Are you her man? Is there a problem? Do you know who she is? He was so handsome, but he wasn't from the upper class of Lin City. If he wasn't a gigolo, who else could he be? Maybe he thought that the Su family was rich and wanted to use Su Qingsang to get close to them. She is just a member of the Su family. Hu Jinyao's expression changed. I know who she is. But you ran out without washing your mouth. Aren't you afraid that the stench will affect others? What did you say? Qiu Junjio's face was so ugly that it looked like it was about to become ferocious. Hu Jinyao ignored her and turned to look at Su Qingsang. Go try them on if you like them. Try a few more. Su Qingsang glanced at him and leaned close to him. She whispered, quit while you're ahead. She didn't care about the marriage between the Su family and the Qiu family. But she didn't want to be on the opposite side. Hu Jinyao acted as if he didn't hear her. He patted her shoulder and let her enter the fitting room. Then he turned to look at Qiu Junjio. If your ears are bad, go see a doctor. If your mouth is dirty, go disinfect it. Those in the know would say that you're a human, but those who don't would think that you're a bug. When had Qiu Junjio ever suffered such humiliation? She was so angry that she took out her phone to make a call. Just as she took out her phone, He Xianyao, who was behind her, suddenly stepped forward. Brother Jinyao? Are you Brother Jinyao? Qiu Junjio even forgot to make the call. She turned around and looked at He Xianyao. Xianyao, what are you talking about? He Xianyao was a new friend she met during her recent trip abroad. She was from Rong City, and the He family of Rong City was quite influential. This time, she used her brother's birthday as an excuse to invite her over. Although she didn't make it to Qiu Yanba's birthday party, He Xianyao still promised her that she would stay in Lin City for a few days before going back. Qiu Junjio couldn't understand He Xianyao's expression. She actually knew Su Qingsang's husband? Hu Jinyao glanced at He Xianyao. He looked familiar, but he couldn't recall where he had seen him before. Brother Jinyao, is that really you? He Xianyao had been studying abroad. But before she went abroad, she visited the Hua family several times. Of course she knew Hu Jinyao. To her, no other man in Rong City was good enough for her. The only person she wanted to marry and be with was Hu Jinyao. Chapter 78. He Xianyao wholeheartedly wanted to marry Hu Jinyao. She had visited the Hua family many times in the past few years. She was beautiful and had a sweet tongue. Mrs. Hua was usually a cold person. She was also quite friendly to her. The He family and the Hua family had business dealings. She had always felt that she was the best match for Hu Jinyao. She was disappointed for a long time when she didn't see Hu Jinyao in Rong City. That was why she agreed to come to Lin City. She didn't expect to meet Hu Jinyao in Rong City, but in Lin City. She didn't dare to recognize him at first. After all, she hadn't seen Hu Jinyao for 2 years. But now that she saw Hu Jinyao's face, how could she not recognize him? Brother Jinyao. I didn't expect to see you here. He Xianyao was not as calm as she was a moment ago. She was just watching from the sidelines. She looked shy like a young girl. Hu Jinyao glanced at her. She looked familiar. He immediately remembered who the woman in front of him was, but he didn't recognize her. Who are you? Brother Jinyao, I'm Xianyao. He Xianyao. Don't you remember? I'm the youngest daughter of the He family. You've worked with my brother before. He Xianyao blushed and looked at Hu Jinyao with her eyes full of charm. If it was another man he might have been tempted. But Hu Jinyao wasn't an ordinary man. He Xianyao. He knew. She was He Xuankai's sister. The only daughter of the He family. Yes. Don't you remember me? Auntie Hua said that our names were both pronounced Yao. She said we were destined to be together. Although the characters were different, the pronunciation was the same. She had always regarded this as a special fate between her and Hu Jinyao. Hu Jinyao's mouth twitched. There were only a few commonly used Chinese characters. There were more than 1 billion people in the country. How many people had the same name? I don't remember. Hu Jinyao didn't want to talk to He Xianyao anymore. This sudden turn of events left Qiu Junjio dumbfounded. She didn't know what was going on. Of course she knew He Xianyao. Her family background was no less than hers. However, such a person treated Hu Jinyao with such an attitude. She looked at Hu Jinyao. Why hadn't she heard that the man Su Qingsang married was very powerful? Didn't you say that you also married a small clerk? How could I not remember? He Xianyao didn't want to give up. It wasn't easy for her to meet Hu Jinyao here. She had to make a deeper impression on him. Seeing that Hu Jinyao was about to leave, she subconsciously wanted to hold his hand. She recalled the conversation between Qiu Junjiao and Hu Jinyao. Jinyao, did you just say that you're married? How could this be? The upper class of Rong City hadn't heard anything about such a big event. He Xianyao thought about Su Qingsang's face. She wasn't particularly pretty. It was just above average. What? Why does brother Jinyao want to be with such a woman? Yes, I'm married. Hu Jinyao could tell that He Xianyao was interested in him. So what? Why so sudden? The shyness on He Xuanyao's face disappeared. Her pale little face was full of injuries. Is that your wife? Do Uncle Hua and Auntie Hua know? He Xianyao thought about what Qiu Junjiao had said about Su Qingsang's identity. Do they know who she is? Chapter 79. Hu Jinyao's straightforward and impolite attitude made He Xuanyao's face turn pale again. Brother Jinyao. Su Qingsang had already changed her clothes and came out. She stood there, slim and graceful. The black suit suited her very well. It made her look more sexy and less delicate than usual. The white suit in front of her also suited her very well. Su Qingsang's figure was not bad. Although not particularly tall. Her figure was slim and perfectly proportioned. Su Qingsang heard a dispute outside, but she didn't hear it clearly. She saw Hu Jinyao walking towards her and He Xuanyao's pale face. She didn't know what was going on. Very pretty. Hu Jinyao didn't give her a chance to talk to the two weird women. He held her waist and let her look at herself in the mirror. How about I wrap all three of them? I don't think that's necessary. The price of these clothes was more than 5 figures. She was just a doctor who had just started working. Why would she need such nice clothes? Just wrap them up if you like them. You? Su Qingsang looked at Hu Jinyao and then at the environment in front of her. She didn't want to hurt him, so she tiptoed and whispered into Hu Jinyao's ear, "Didn't you just start working? Just buy them for a year." Her voice was very soft, and her hot breath brushed against Hu Jinyao's ear. He was a little tempted. He almost couldn't hear what Su Qingsang said. When he realized what she meant, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist and whispered into her ear, "I went on a business trip a few days ago. The deal was good. The boss agreed to give me a bonus. Well, you can buy them if you like them. It's okay." Su Qingsang turned to look at him. The flattery in Hu Jinyao's eyes was too obvious. For a moment, she felt as if she had been entangled by a golden retriever. Save for a rainy day. Be thrifty. Don't you know? As soon as he got his bonus, he spent it all. She was buying a ring and clothes. What if she needed money in the future? I know. I have you. Hu Jinyao whispered into her ear, "The money I earn is for my wife to spend. I'll be happy to spend it all." His warm breath brushed against her ear. Su Qingsang remembered how he had talked to her like this last night when he had done it with her. She felt uncomfortable and took a step back. "I'll go change my clothes." Hu Jinyao had a smile in his eyes. Su Qingsang was good at everything, but she was too thin-skinned. It didn't matter. He would do it a few more times next time. When she got used to it, she would get used to it. He Xuanyao's eyes turned red when she saw how close they were. Brother Jinyao. When Su Qingsang entered the fitting room, she heard the voice and turned around. She had heard it just now, but she thought she had heard it wrong through the door. Hu Jinyao's face darkened. He turned to look at He Xianyao. "Who are you calling?" "Brother Jinyao, how can you do this to me?" She had liked him for so many years and waited for him for so many years. Was this how he treated her? "Jinyao?" Su Qingsang didn't go to get changed. Instead, she stood in front of Hu Jinyao and asked, "Do you know each other?" How could Qiu Junjiao's friend know Hu Jinyao? No. Hu Jinyao looked calm and looked at He Xianyao as if she was a stranger. "I don't know you. And please call me Mr. Hua." "Brother Jinyao?" He Xianyao looked hurt. "What are you talking about? Jinyao?" It didn't seem like she didn't know him. Su Qingsang looked at Hu Jinyao and then at He Xianyao. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.